Spring returned to the capital as April's emerald flowers fluttered in the wind, and the azure sky gleamed as if it had just been rinsed clean of every cloud, a rare kind of weather. Yet inside a taxi, the atmosphere was far from bright, for the chilling morning wind whipped through the open window and made the drunken figure leaning in the back seat sneeze, just as the driver pressed the taximeter with a ticking sound and said, "We're here," forcing Wen Xiaohui to pry open his aching eyes, struggle up, and mutter in confusion, "Huh? We've arrived?" To which the driver calmly confirmed, "Yes, we've arrived," prompting Xiaohui to inhale deeply and ask the fare, only to be told 46, a number that made his hand freeze mid-motion as he demanded again, louder this time, "How much?" And when the driver repeated, "See for yourself," Xiaohui yawned, cleared his throat, and with a sharper voice snapped, "Are you kidding me? I've walked home from Senlitan more times than you've driven. It's at most 35 when even with traffic. Did you think you could cheat me just because I'm drunk? This young master doesn't get drunk that easily. And even if I were, my heaven's eye could still see through you," before flinging 35 yuan at him with disdain and declaring, "That's your lot." While the driver grumbled, he had made no money on this trip, leading Xiaohui to sneer, "So you can't leave empty-handed. I had plenty to drink last night. Want me to unload it here in your car?" And he even began retching until the cursing driver surrendered. All right, get out. Bad luck today," which Xiaohui did, rolling his eyes. But before the driver sped away, he leaned out and hurled a slur that made Xiaohui spin around in rage, shouting, "Who are you cursing?" But the car had already screeched off into the distance. At the entrance of his building, however, his heart lurched for an entirely different reason when he saw a woman standing there, and in an instant, frustration, disgust, and surprise surged in him, for he hadn't expected Sun Ying to show up uninvited. Yet here she was shouting, "You encouraged my sister to run away? How dare you show up here?" before delivering a thunderbolt. "Your sister Luo Yaya took her own life," a claim that stunned Xiaohui, who stammered in disbelief. "She died? Impossible. She was the cruelest, most cold-hearted woman. How could she commit suicide?" But Sun Ying, unfazed, pulled out an envelope and insisted, "This is Yaya's suicide note. She said it must be handed to you. You're the only one she trusted. There's something she wanted you to do, and that's why I'm here." Yet Xiaohui's face twisted bitterly as he retorted, "Her dying wish? I don't want anything except my inheritance. Piss off," before fleeing toward the corridor, trying to hide from the storm in his chest, only for Sun Ying to shout after him, "There's an inheritance, and a child too," which made his legs weaken instantly. For though he had heard rumors Yaya had a child long ago, he had never seen the boy or girl, and for years their family had erased her existence as if she had never been born, especially after their father's death, when he thought he would never hear her name again. Yet now, after 4 or 5 silent years, news of her came only in death. Sobbing, Sun Ying caught up and pleaded, "Xiaohui, Yaya said very clearly in her note that part of her assets will be left to you and Auntie, but she begged you to look after her son, your nephew." Words that made Xiaohui's expression harden before he barked, "Piss off!" so fiercely that Sun Ying, trembling and in tears, shoved the letter into his arms, covered her mouth, and ran away crying, leaving Xiaohui shaking, vision blurred, almost collapsing before he forced himself upstairs, clutching the letter, and rushed into his home, hiding beneath his blanket just as his mother entered, asking gently, "Xiao, are you joking around again? What are you doing under the blanket?" But he choked out, "Mom, don't bother me. Please leave me alone," refusing to let her know about Yaya, and when she pressed, "Why are you crying?" he still stayed silent until she quietly withdrew. Only then, with trembling fingers, did he tear open the envelope and read the words that shattered him completely. "Xiaohui, I'm sorry. Your sister is gone. I don't know if I still have the right to call myself your sister, but in my heart, you have always been my most beloved little brother. You don't need to investigate the reasons behind my decision to leave this world. Just promise me this is for your and Aunt's safety. From the day I got involved with that man, I already knew how it would end. My only concern now is my son, Luo Yi, who just turned 15. He is remarkable, and I cannot bear the thought of leaving him in someone else's hands. I beg you, please take care of him until he is grown. Protect him, love him, be there for him. In the inheritance, there's a house and 3 million. This is for you and Aunt. Uncle is gravely ill, and I myself am bedridden. I know you've always resented me for what happened, and I don't expect forgiveness. I only want you to know how deeply grateful and guilty I am to you and the family. Please grant me this one final request. Take care of my son. He's more alone in this world than I ever was." And with that, Wen Xiaohui sat frozen, staring at Luo Yaya's last words that would change his life forever. Wen Xiaohui sat in a daze for a long time after reading the suicide note, his breath heavy, his eyes fixed on the snow-white ceiling as Luo Yaya's face and fragments of memories surged back to him. Almost 5 months had passed without any news of her, and now, suddenly, he had learned of her death, a death that shook him to the core, because although Yaya was adopted, she had not been part of their family since childhood, but only from the age of 12 or 13, when his father, out out of loyalty to a comrade who had once shared life and death with him, had taken her in. And yet later, deceived by Sunying, Yaya had fallen into the trap of a powerful married man and even born his child, after which contact with her became rare. And 4 years ago, when their father lay critically ill and begged to see her, she never came, which made his mother complain bitterly that it was Yaya who had broken his father's heart. And though Xiaohui had once resisted such thoughts, he eventually allowed anger to harden him, convincing himself that she was selfish, fickle, cruel, someone who no longer existed in their family, even as his heart betrayed him by recalling her kindness to him long ago. And now at the bottom of the note he found a lawyer's phone number, which he read over and over until it was etched in his mind, torn between calling and ignoring it, wondering if he could really raise a 15-year-old child when he could barely support himself, debating whether to tell his mother, knowing well that though she was sharp-tongued, she wasn't heartless, yet her hatred for Yaya would never let her accept the child, until, frustrated and lost in thought, he dialed the number before regret could stop him. The very next afternoon, after finishing work, he rushed to the address sent by the lawyer, Mr. Cao, but the moment he got off the subway, he realized he was lost, for despite growing up in the capital, he had never set foot in this part of the city, and as he wandered southward for nearly 10 minutes, without meeting a single passerby, irritation and unease gnawed at him, both because of being lost and because of the fateful meeting ahead, when suddenly the sound of a bicycle rang out behind him, and as he turned, their eyes locked. He didn't even have time to see the boy's face clearly before surprise struck them both. His balance faltered, and he fell heavily to the ground. Lying there, helpless but not in pain, Xiaohui cursed his luck, thinking how nothing had gone smoothly since yesterday, when a clear, youthful voice broke his daze with concern. "Excuse me, are you okay?" And looking up, his heart skipped as he met a pair of deep, dazzling eyes belonging to a boy no older than 15 or 16, too young, and yet with a strikingly handsome face that made Xiaohui's pulse race despite himself. For though he preferred mature, masculine men and would never allow himself to be attracted to a minor, he could not deny the boy's extraordinary beauty, and even as he struggled with his thoughts, the youth apologized, explaining he'd been distracted by music, offering to take him to a hospital, which Xiaohui quickly declined, brushing off his scrape before suddenly remembering the message and showing it to the boy, asking directions. The boy's gaze sharpened as he read, then, after a pause, said simply, "It's on my way, I'll take you there." And with that, he patted the back seat of his bicycle. Xiaohui climbed on, faintly aware of the boy's lean waistline under his white shirt, mentally scolding himself for even noticing, reminding himself it was inappropriate to tease or flirt with someone so young, especially when his heart leaned toward mature men, and so he stayed silent as the cool spring breeze brushed his face, until finally the boy stopped, saying, "It's here," and Xiaohui, with a forced smile, replied, "Thanks. Bye then, handsome," before taking a deep breath and stepping inside the building with a heavy heart, where a man in his 30s greeted him. It was the lawyer Mr. Cao, and Xiaohui introduced himself, only to notice Cao glance past him, and when Xiaohui turned, his heart froze, for the boy from the bicycle had silently followed him in, standing there with his hands tucked in his pockets, a faint smile on his lips, and in that instant, Xiaohui understood why the youth had looked familiar, for his features carried the unmistakable shadow of Luo Yaya, and when the boy's voice rang out, calm, steady, and yet piercing, "Hello, uncle," it struck Xiaohui like lightning, leaving his mind blank, and his fate suddenly, irrevocably entangled. Cao Hai welcomed Wen Xiaohui with a calm smile, saying, "Come in and take a seat." And though stiff and uneasy, Wen Xiaohui followed him into the office where they sat on a sofa, as Cao Hai explained that the winery was a joint venture with friends, used for informal gatherings, and also his personal hobby, so there was no need to feel tense since no outsiders were present. Wen Xiaohui nodded silently as Luo Yi extended his hand with polite confidence and introduced himself. "Uncle, I'm Luo Yi," forcing Wen Xiaohui to shake hands awkwardly and mutter, "I'm Wen Xiaohui. You don't have to call me uncle," to which Luo Yi asked curiously, "Why?" And Wen replied in pain, "Don't you know your mum and I aren't related by blood?" But Luo Yi countered gently, "Of course I know, but my mum always treated you like her own brother," a truth that made Wen Xiaohui's heart ache as he insisted sadly, "In any case, don't call me uncle. I feel awkward hearing it," prompting Luo Yi to blink and ask, "Then what should I call you?" And Wen answered softly, "Just call me brother Wen Xiaohui," before asking his age, learning he was 15, and then nervously rubbing his hands before blurting out, "My sister, how did she?" only to choke on the words, while Luo Yi lowered his eyes and whispered, "You're better off not knowing." And Wen, unwilling to torment a child with cruel memories, dropped the question and instead asked about the funeral, to which Cao Hai explained it had already been held quietly, exactly as Mrs. Luo had wished, then warned him firmly that for his and Ms. Feng's safety, he must not look deeper into the matter, since Luo Yi's father's family was not ordinary and best left untouched, a revelation that made Wen Xiaohui shiver as he nodded, "I understand." Cao Hai continued, reminding him of the letter from Mrs. Luo about fostering Luo Yi and asked for his thoughts, while Wen, glancing at the boy, confessed bitterly, "Do you think I have the ability to raise you? I'm not even 20 and my monthly salary is just 1/5 100 yuan, but Chow Hai reassured him that money was not an issue, since Mrs. Luo had left ample funds for Luo Yi's living expenses, which he would simply need to allocate. Wen, however, protested again. It's not just money. Firstly, I can't guide him in studies, nor cook or wash clothes, and secondly, I can't let my mother know. I don't know how she will react. But Luo Yi, with a faint, almost mature smile, looked straight at him and replied, Firstly, I don't need you to help me study or cook or wash clothes. I can handle those things myself. And secondly, my mom left me a house, so Ms. Feng will not find out, leaving Wen speechless as he asked, Then, what do you need me for? And though they had only just met, Wen could already see the boy's remarkable maturity, sharper and more composed than his own. As Luo Yi explained gently, My mom wasn't at ease leaving me alone. She only trusted you, and she wanted me to have family. It was her final wish. Words that shook Wen Xiaohui to his core, making him bow his head as Chow Hai added, Yes, Luo Yi is more sensible than many children, but he's still only 15, and only by entrusting him to you could Mrs. Luo rest in peace, which made Wen flare up angrily. Rest in peace? If she cared so much, why did she die? Why? But before his rage could spiral, a warm hand suddenly ruffled his hair, slid down to brush his earlobe, and finally gripped the back of his neck with quiet strength, startling Wen, who froze as Luo Yi whispered softly in his ear, Don't be sad. My mom's gone to a very good place, free from suffering, deceit, and despair. This was her choice, and now she's finally free. I feel happy for her. Only for Wen to choke out, why would you think that? She's dead. I'll never see her again. But Luo Yi, calm and gentle, comforted him again. I can't be selfish, and keep her in a place where she would only suffer. Uncle, don't be sad. Be happy for her too. And though Wen couldn't fully grasp the strange maturity, the softness of Luo Yi's voice gradually soothed his stormy heart until he asked quietly, Why are you calling me uncle again? And Luo Yi smiled, I forgot, before releasing him. Wen sat back down on the sofa, rubbing his head in frustration, and turned to Chow Hai. Mr. Cao, I don't know what I need to do. Can you tell me? To which Chow Hai calmly replied, I've already prepared all the paperwork. You just need to look it over and sign. There's nothing special required. Just treat Luo Yi as family, and I'm sure you don't need anyone to teach you how to treat family members. As Wen looked into Luo Yi's trusting eyes, he shut his own and finally made a decision, whispering, Please hand me the documents, then scanned through them, finding no trick. They clearly outlined the inheritance he and Ms. Feng would receive only once Luo Yi turned 18, while in the meantime, Luo Yi would have a monthly allowance of 10,000 yuan and access to emergency funds, though the details of his future inheritance didn't interest Wen since it wasn't his concern, even if part of him wondered just how much Yaya had managed to earn over the years to leave behind such wealth, a mystery that lingered in his mind even as fate sealed his new responsibility. After finishing the letter, Wen Xiaohui signed it without much thought. He was still too young to fully understand the consequences of that signature, his only intention being that he couldn't let Yaya's dying wish go unfulfilled. And besides, inheriting a house and a large sum of money could only benefit him and his mother. Cao Hai, seeing his signature, smiled and congratulated him as Mr. Wen, making Xiaohui awkwardly glance at Luo Yi, who then warmly invited him to visit his house nearby, an offer Xiaohui accepted, and since it was on Cao Hai's way home, he placed Luo Yi's bicycle in the back of his SUV and drove them. On the ride, Xiaohui asked Luo Yi about his school and job, to which Luo Yi answered before shyly asking if he could visit Xiaohui after school to hang out, a request Xiaohui agreed to, while Cao Hai cut in with questions about Xiaohui's work, prompting Xiaohui to proudly mention he was a trainee stylist at the renowned Juxing hair studio, which impressed Cao Hai, though Xiaohui modestly admitted that with poor grades he hadn't entered university and only pursued his passion for hairstyling. Cao Hai laughed, remarking that Xiaohui didn't need to worry about tutoring Luo Yi since the boy had extraordinary intelligence, ranked first in the city during secondary school, and astonishingly, had even skipped a grade, already a third-year student preparing for university entrance exams, though with offers and full scholarships from 7 prestigious overseas universities already in hand, exams hardly mattered. And hearing this, Xiaohui stared at Luo Yi in disbelief, overwhelmed that this polite, smiling boy was in fact a prodigy, his chest tightening with grief as he thought of Yaya, who had chosen suicide despite having such a brilliant son, and he couldn't fathom what despair had driven her away. Soon, Cao Hai dropped them at Luo Yi's villa, where Luo Yi thanked him, and walking side by side into the neighborhood, Xiaohui curiously asked about Cao Hai, learning he was around 32, successful, intelligent, and married, which disappointed Xiaohui slightly, though he hid it by shifting the topic and asking if Luo Yi and his sister had always lived here, to which Luo Yi replied that he himself had always lived here, but Yaya rarely came home, likely busy with business. Luo Yi parked his bike casually without locking it, assuring Xiaohui that the CCTV-filled neighborhood was safe, then welcomed him warmly inside a stylish, minimalistic home that, though spotless and adorned with a white grand piano, lacked homeliness. Xiaohui asked if Luo Yi had grown up alone in such a big house and was told that in childhood he had a nanny, but afterward needed no no one. And when Xiaohui accidentally asked about his father, Luo Yi stiffened and coldly replied that he rarely saw him, silencing Xiaohui, who then noticed a photo wall filled with Yaya and Luo Yi's pictures from his childhood to teenage years. Images of a stunning Yaya whose beauty Luo Yi had fully inherited. So much so that looking at him felt like gazing at the younger sister Xiaohui once adored and worshipped, now existing only in memory. Below the photos stood a cabinet stacked with trophies and certificates, international math Olympiads, physics competitions, archery, skiing, piano, English, and more, which amazed Xiaohui, who asked about them, only to hear Luo Yi casually explain that one trophy was from an international Muay Thai competition, and the rest were from various contests he'd won. Dumbfounded, Xiaohui asked how many competitions he had joined, and Luo Yi listed them off effortlessly. Mathematical sciences, debating, inventing, languages, archery, shooting, skiing, Muay Thai, piano, cello, even equestrianism, tennis, and fencing. Xiaohui, utterly overwhelmed by this walking halo of perfection, stammered and requested a Coke, but since there was none, Luo Yi offered fruit juice instead. Xiaohui, trembling, carefully placed back the Muay Thai trophy he had been holding, and even bowed before the shelf of awards, as if seeking blessing from their brilliance, before finally sinking into the sofa, where Luo Yi set before him a tall glass of cucumber and kiwi juice, smiling lightly as if all of this were ordinaries. When Xiaohui lifted the glass, took a sip, and muttered that it didn't taste bad, though it wasn't delicious either, before frowning and suggesting some sugar or honey. But Luo Yi, staring seriously at his face, replied that the ingredients were meant to help with edema, so it was better not to add extras. This made Wen Xiaohui nervously touch his face, worrying aloud if his face and eyelids were still swollen and fretting that he'd end up with fine lines, insisting that normally his face was smaller and his eyes were much bigger than they looked now. And when Luo Yi calmly said, "I know, my mom showed me your photo," Xiaohui's heart stumbled at the awkwardness of meeting someone he'd never known, not sure how to respond, until Luo Yi asked if he was hungry and invited him to stay for dinner, which made Xiaohui blurt out whether he could even cook, confessing that he himself didn't know how, to which Luo Yi smiled, said, "I'll do it," and handed him the Wi-Fi password so he could play while he cooked. Once Luo Yi left, Wen Xiaohui collapsed on the big leather sofa, closed his eyes, and felt the surreal weight of the day crash in, still unable to believe that he had suddenly become the guardian of a young genius he barely knew, confused by the very word guardian, aware that Luo Yi was far more intelligent and capable than he was, and terrified of having hidden such a life-changing thing from his mum after recklessly signing the contract, but remembering that Yaya had begged him in the letter, and that Luo Yi himself had said she wanted him to have a close relative, he could not refuse, even if the sofa's softness lulled him into a daze that soon tipped him into sleep, from which he woke with a start to find Luo Yi's large, bright eyes right in front of his own, close enough to see the fine, downy hair on the boy's face, skin so supple it made Xiaohui envious, and when he yawned and asked if he had really fallen asleep, Luo Yi smiled and told him he could rest there after dinner if he was tired, but Xiaohui shook his head and said he couldn't, because his mum would scold him for not returning home, to which Luo Yi teasingly replied that he was already an adult, yet still under control, and Xiaohui, sniffing the air, broke into a reluctant smile at the aroma and asked what he'd cooked. "Oh, Maurice," Luo Yi said, which made Xiaohui curious if he liked it too, and Luo Yi nodded, saying softly that his mum told him Xiaohui's favorite dish was the omarice she made, words that darkened Xiaohui's expression and twisted his feelings between heartbreak and warmth, until Luo Yi gently raised his chin and told him not to feel sad for his mother, but glad, because she was free from suffering, a logic Xiaohui could not accept, as he shook his head and argued that when someone dies they can no longer be touched, heard, or seen, so how could one not be sad, only for Luo Yi to quietly answer that he was glad she no longer had to suffer, leaving Xiaohui's voice trembling as he asked if Luo Yi wasn't sad to lose his mother, but the boy only smiled without answering and urged him to eat dinner. Unsettled by such unusual thinking, Xiaohui sat at the table, his heart aching as he looked at the light yellow omarice on the white bone china plate, and when he tasted it, it was exactly the same as he remembered, prompting Luo Yi to ask if it was nice, and Xiaohui to admit it was delicious, before hesitantly asking if his sister had mentioned him often, to which Luo Yi replied that she had, that she showed him photos, and even took him to Xiaohui's school once though he never noticed, a revelation that baffled Xiaohui, who wondered why she had never told him about Luo Yi or introduced them, only to receive Luo Yi's evasive answer that she didn't want to cause trouble for him and Miss Feng, which Xiaohui suspected had something to do with Luo Yi's biological father, and so chose not to pry, while Luo Yi quietly confessed that even though Xiaohui hadn't known of his existence, he had always thought of him as family, a confession that made Xiaohui's heart soften as he looked at the youth's lowered head, trembling eyelashes, and innocent face, reaching out to ruffle his hair and promising, "We're family, brother Xiaohui will protect you in future." After dinner, Luo Yi asked if he wanted a tour of the house, and Xiaohui, wiping his mouth with a napkin, smiled and said, "Yeah, sure, let's go." The first floor primarily consisted of the living room, kitchen, nanny's room and storage room, while the second floor consisted of 3 rooms. Luo Yi pushed open the door closest to the stairs and said, "This is Mom's room. The next door has been opened up, so it's her dressing room. Across from it is the gym." A photo of Luo Yaya hung above the bed, adorned with jewels, her features sharp and piercing, her beauty radiant. Wen Xiaohui had never seen Luo Yaya like this before. He walked over to the dressing table, which was massive and looked like a display case for beauty products. Luo Yi said, "Take whatever you like. Expired ones are a waste." Wen Xiaohui lifted the comb and brought it to his nose, the rich, natural scent of wood wafting through. "Sandalwood?" he asked, and Luo Yi nodded. Wen Xiaohui shook his head. "What on earth has my sister been doing these past few years? A comb costs tens of thousands, and Chao Hai calls her Boss Luo." He turned, meeting Luo Yi's gaze. "Tell me the truth. Has she done anything illegal?" Luo Yi replied, "I don't know. I know almost nothing about her." Wen Xiaohui's voice grew sharp and trembling as he said, "You're so smart, but you really don't know anything? You know she's in pain and despair. You know she's been deceived. You said all that yourself, but you don't know why she's in pain, despair, and deceived?" Luo Yi frowned, a hint of grievance in his eyes, and whispered, "I really don't know." Seeing Luo Yi's panic, Wen Xiaohui realized he had scared him, and his attitude softened immediately. He touched Luo Yi's face gently and said, "I'm not targeting you. You don't know. Forget it." Luo Yi nodded, looking a little pitiful. Wen Xiaohui then said, "Leave this comb for me as a souvenir." Luo Yi replied, "Sure." Wen Xiaohui walked into Luo Yaya's cloakroom and was once again shocked. The entire huge room was like a showroom filled with her clothes, shoes, bags, and jewelry, and this was just a home she didn't even visit often. Wen Xiaohui sighed. "Even if my sister didn't leave you anything, you would have enough to eat for a lifetime if you sold these things." Luo Yi replied, "I won't sell them, but I can give them to you if you like." Wen Xiaohui felt an overwhelming sense of disappointment. He saw many things he normally only envied, but he didn't see what he truly wanted, the traces of his sister in his memory. The sister who had raised him since childhood, and the queen of this luxurious castle, seemed to be completely different people. He asked casually, "How did you know I like it?" Luo Yi smiled and said, "I've read your blog. It's quite interesting." Wen Xiaohui instantly thought of his Weibo, and felt a wave of embarrassment, as his posts mainly consisted of 3 categories: makeup tutorials, selfies of him posing in various ways, and pictures of muscular men. But he quickly relented, for he was who he was, and he didn't care if others disliked his mother or thought he was gay. What others thought was none of his business. Straightening his back with pride, he said, "I became famous very quickly, just over a year. Do you know why?" Luo Yi smiled and asked why. Wen Xiaohui poked his cheek in the mirror and replied proudly, "Of course, it's because I'm beautiful." Luo Yi looked at him seriously and said, "That makes sense." Wen Xiaohui smiled at him and said, "Let's go to your room." Luo Yi's room was on the 3rd floor, and the moment he opened the door, Wen Xiaohui was stunned again, for Luo Yi had opened up the entire floor, making the room extremely large. Every corner and wall was fully utilized, storing countless things, while still remaining neat and clean. Wen Xiaohui sighed, "You have too much stuff in your house." Luo Yi smiled and replied, "Like I said, I have a wide range of interests. The attic on the 4th floor is also full of my stuff." Wen Xiaohui fiddled with a beautiful fountain pen and said, "Really quite a wide range." Suddenly, Luo Yi leaned over Wen Xiaohui and grasped his hand, making Wen Xiaohui feel a little awkward. Luo Yi was so close to him, close enough that he could smell his warm scent. "What are you doing?" Wen Xiaohui asked nervously, and Luo Yi whispered, "I suddenly wanted to write your name." Wen Xiaohui stiffened, confused by the ambiguous atmosphere, thinking to himself that even if he were gay, he couldn't have such fantasies about a 15-year-old, let alone his sister's child. But Luo Yi took his hand and wrote the 3 words, Wen Xiaohui, on the paper. Wen Xiaohui quickly withdrew his hand and praised, "Your handwriting is really beautiful." For some reason, he felt inexplicably nervous, so he stood up to divert his attention, and his eyes landed on the bookshelf in front of him. "Hey, you finally have something that interests me," he said, as he picked up a sealed bottle whose fragrance was very light. "Well, it smells good." "This is not perfume," Luo Yi explained. "Then what is it?" Wen Xiaohui asked. "It's an aphrodisiac that has been passed down among the Roma people for thousands of years," Luo Yi replied. Wen Xiaohui's expression turned blank, but Luo Yi laughed and continued, "The concentration of this formula is very low. I mixed it myself. If the concentration were high, you would feel very excited just by opening it and smelling it. Taking it directly could be fatal." Wen Xiaohui quickly put the bottle back in its place and scolded, "You kid, do you study these weird things all day long and no one cares about you?" Luo Yi blinked, his eyes surprisingly gentle, and said softly, "You can take care of me." For some reason, Wen Xiaohui didn't dare meet his eyes and rolled his own instead, saying, "I can't take care of it. Worrying too much will give me wrinkles. I want to go back." But Luo Yi grabbed his arm and pleaded, "Brother Xiaohui, stay with me for a while." Wen Xiaohui shook his head. "It's getting dark. There will be no cars if it's later." "Then you can stay here tonight," Luo Yi suggested. "No, my mom will scold me," Wen Xiaohui replied. Luo Yi lowered his head and whispered, "It's been a long time since anyone other than me has come here. It feels so good to have someone at home talking to me. I really don't want you to leave." Wen Xiaohui felt his scalp tingle, unable to force himself to walk away, for he realized Luo Yi must be very lonely living alone in such a big house. So, after a pause, Wen Xiaohui said, "Then, I'll call my mom." At once, Luo Yi's face lit up with a smile so beautiful that it could only be described as a flower blooming in spring. And in that moment, Wen Xiaohui felt that even being scolded was no big deal. He didn't dare to call in the end. Instead, he made up an excuse, sent a text message to his mother, and then turned off his phone, knowing well that he could never truly deceive her. And even if he went back, he would definitely be scolded, so he thought it better to enjoy some quiet time tonight. Luo Yi looked very happy and asked, "Brother Xiaohui, where do you want to sleep at night? Because there have never been outsiders visiting my house. There is no guest room. The nanny's room hasn't been cleaned for a long time and can't be lived in. Do you want to live in my mother's room?" Wen Xiaohui shook his head quickly. Although he missed Luo Yaya deeply, he didn't have the courage and was still somewhat superstitious. Luo Yi then suggested, "Then you sleep with me. My bed is very big and we can chat at night." Wen Xiaohui saw Luo Yi's frank look, and though he struggled in his heart, he thought refusing might make him look guilty, so he agreed. Okay. After taking a shower, Wen Xiaohui came out dressed in Luo Yi's pajamas and threw himself onto Luo Yi's 2-meter-long bed. The mattress was perfectly firm and extremely comfortable, making him stretch his waist, roll around twice, and even pedal an imaginary bicycle in the air. When Luo Yi returned from his shower, he found Wen Xiaohui exercising with his long, thin, pale legs stretched out. His wide shorts had slid up his thighs, faintly revealing traces of his underwear, which made Luo Yi pause in surprise, his jaw tightening. Wen Xiaohui panted and said, "Don't talk to me now," to which Luo Yi teased with a smile. "You were the one who spoke to me first." He leaned against the doorframe, watching as Wen Xiaohui's legs bounced around like a rabbit, stirring an urge in him to restrain the boy. After finishing 3 sets of movements, Wen Xiaohui collapsed on the bed, arms and legs sprawled, breathing hard as he groaned, "I'm so tired." Luo Yi asked curiously, "Why are you doing this?" Wen Xiaohui answered, "To slim down my legs." Luo Yi explained patiently, "If you want better results, the slower the better. Kicking too fast disrupts your breathing and prevents your muscles from being fully stimulated." Wen Xiaohui widened his eyes. "Really?" And Luo Yi nodded, saying, "Yes. If you want to train a specific part of your body, it's best to find a professional fitness coach, take some courses, and only then start working out properly." Wen Xiaohui sighed, "But private training is so expensive. How can I afford it?" Luo Yi calmly replied, "You can use my living expenses." Shocked, Wen Xiaohui protested, "Isn't that inappropriate? Without living expenses, how would you eat?" But Luo Yi only smiled and said, "It doesn't matter. I have other savings, and I also invest in funds." In that moment, Wen Xiaohui looked at Luo Yi as though he were a shining angel, his voice softening with a shy blush as he murmured, I'm a little embarrassed." Luo Yi said, "It's okay. That money is for you anyway. Just think of it as a salary." Wen Xiaohui was delighted and replied, "Thank you very much. Don't worry, I'll buy you nice things often. By the way, come to Juxing and see me someday. I'll give you a haircut." Luo Yi touched his hair and asked, "It's not long, is it?" Wen Xiaohui quickly said, "It's not long, but the shape is not good. I'll give you a new hairstyle. I guarantee you'll be more handsome than before. Girls will be weak at the sight of you." Luo Yi smiled and agreed. "Okay." Wen Xiaohui winked mischievously and asked, "Hey, do you have a girlfriend?" Luo Yi shook his head. "No." Surprised, Wen Xiaohui asked, "Really? You must have a lot of girls chasing you." Luo Yi replied calmly, "It's okay. I don't have time for a girlfriend." Wen Xiaohui rolled his eyes, pointing at the messy things in the room. "You only have time for these things?" Luo Yi answered seriously, "These are very interesting." Wen Xiaohui pressed further, "So you haven't had a girlfriend before?" Luo Yi shook his head again, his face innocent, making Wen Xiaohui look at him in disbelief. Sitting up straight, he spoke regretfully, "Look at you. You're handsome and rich, and you don't have the pressure of the college entrance exam. You spend plenty of time studying poisons and Muay Thai, but aren't you wasting your youth? Young people should fall in love." Luo Yi countered, "What about you? Do you have a boyfriend?" Wen Xiaohui was caught off guard. Hey, how do you know me?" Luo Yi only smiled silently, making Wen Xiaohui scratch his hair awkwardly before realizing, "Oh, you read my blog." Looking at Luo Yi hesitantly with squinted eyes, he asked, "Can you accept it?" Luo Yi shrugged. "Why not? It's your freedom." Wen Xiaohui sighed in relief. "That's good. In fact, I don't care what others say. Even my mother doesn't care about me, so who are other people?" Luo Yi nodded. "You're right. Then, do you have a boyfriend?" Wen Xiaohui admitted, "I'm still single now." He recalled bitterly, "I had a boyfriend last year, my first love, tall, handsome, and very sweet-tongued, a few years older than me. But after only half a month of dating, I found out that the bastard was cheating on me. He already had a fiancé and was still sleeping around everywhere. Damn it, I must have been blind at that time. How could I fall for such a scumbag? I'm so angry." His face flushed with anger as the memory resurfaced. Luo Yi raised the corner of his mouth slightly. "Oh, that's too much." Wen Xiaohui snapped, "It's more than just too much. He's After I found out, I told his girlfriend everything, then beat him up and scratched his car. He laughed proudly. I used an awl to draw several turtles on his car, deflated all 4 tires, and smashed the headlights. Ha 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 ha. His face turned green at the time. He deserved it. Luo Yi agreed with a smile. He really deserved it. Wen Xiaohui snorted. He got off easy. I didn't dare tell my mother. She told me not to have a relationship before I graduate from high school. If she knew, she would never let him off easily, but I'd be dead. Luo Yi advised gently, be more careful when judging people. In the future, Wen Xiaohui sighed and said, it's easy to say, but some people deliberately pretend. They look like good people on the surface, so how can you tell? After I started working, I realized that I was still simpler in school. He lay down on the bed with a lonely expression on his face, and although that so-called first love hadn't hurt him too much, it had definitely left him feeling sick. It seemed that only after that experience did he truly become wary of others. Luo Yi looked at him seriously and said, if you ever fall in love again, bring them to me. At least I'll have someone to help you with your decisions. Wen Xiaohui smiled softly and replied, okay, you're so smart, maybe you really can tell the difference between good and bad. Luo Yi curled his lips into a faint smile and asked, then tell me, what kind of people do you think are bad? Wen Xiaohui frowned and said, bad people, criminals, people with bad character, liars, and those with violent tendencies. Then he added thoughtfully, these kinds of bad people are easy to identify. As he blinked, his gaze unconsciously shifted toward Luo Yi, and he asked, then what kind of bad people are not easy to identify? Luo Yi's eyes locked onto his voice slightly hoarse as he gave a half smile and said, only people who endanger their own interests will become bad people. A sudden, inexplicable chill ran down Wen Xiaohui's neck, and though he thought it was just his imagination, he rubbed his neck uneasily, still replaying Luo Yi's words in his mind, only half understanding them. Luo Yi's expression softened into a bright smile as he added, anyway, you should be more careful in the future and don't trust others too easily. Wen Xiaohui nodded earnestly. Of course, I've matured a lot too. Pulling back the quilt and crawling in beside him, Luo Yi murmured, go to sleep, I have to go to school tomorrow. Okay, Wen Xiaohui replied, and as Luo Yi turned off the lights, Wen Xiaohui yawned and closed his eyes. After a moment of silence in the darkness, Luo Yi suddenly asked, Brother Xiaohui, what kind of man do you like? Wen Xiaohui laughed softly. I like tall, muscular, mature men. If they're rich, that's even better. Luo Yi chuckled lightly. You'll find one. Wen Xiaohui nodded, though his voice carried a hint of tiredness. Of course, but I don't have time for a relationship right now. I'm too busy at juxing. I need to work hard so that I can have money and free time in the future. Being in a relationship now would just be a waste of time. Oh well, let it go. Well then, Brother Xiaohui, good night, Luo Yi whispered. Good night, Wen Xiaohui replied, drifting towards sleep, while Luo Yi lay awake, staring at the ceiling, his pupils gleaming like crystals in the dark. When Wen Xiaohui finally awoke, daylight was streaming into the room, and it took him 3 full seconds to realize he wasn't at home, but at Luo Yi's house. The thought of his first time staying overnight at someone else's place, someone who wasn't his boyfriend, made him laugh inwardly. Perhaps family bonds truly did transcend blood. It was his first time meeting Luo Yi, and yet there was no wall between them. He hadn't let Luo Yi call him uncle, but in his heart he already considered him his nephew. Just then, Luo Yi pushed open the door and found him getting out of bed, saying cheerfully, Up? Great, come down for breakfast. Dressed in a sweatshirt and slim black professional track pants, Luo Yi's appearance made Wen Xiaohui swallow unconsciously. Though he wasn't attracted to children, that didn't stop him from admiring beauty, and Luo Yi's figure certainly didn't resemble that of an undeveloped teenager. Despite being slim, he was exceptionally well built. Wen Xiaohui quickly rubbed his eyes to cover his reaction and said casually, You get up so early, I'll just brush my teeth and come down. Okay, hurry up, otherwise the porridge will get cold, Luo Yi replied. After washing up, Wen Xiaohui went downstairs, where Luo Yi was already seated at the dining table, drinking milk and reading a newspaper. Scratching his hair, Wen Xiaohui muttered, Why don't you even have styling supplies here? My hair looks messy. Luo Yi smiled lightly. There might be some in Mom's room, you can check. Forget it. Wen Xiaohui sighed and sat down. In front of him was a bowl of pumpkin porridge, a fried egg, 2 sandwiches, and 4 small side dishes. Beside them, milk, coffee, and boiled water were neatly arranged in order. The presentation was exquisite, and just looking at it was enough to spark an appetite. Wow, breakfast is so exquisite, he exclaimed. Luo Yi set down the newspaper and said firmly, Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. You have to eat well. Wen Xiaohui shrugged with a small smile. My mom's cooking is terrible. I basically eat yesterday's leftovers every morning. The worst part is I'm lazy. I don't even want to cook for myself, no matter how bad it tastes. Luo Yi blinked before offering, Your workplace is near mine. Why don't you come here often? I'll cook for you. Wen Xiaohui thought it over. The studio was more than 3 times farther from his home than from Luo Yi's place. It spanned nearly the entire capital. Commuting every day was exhausting, and on top of that, his mother was always controlling. Luo Yi's proposal immediately tempted him. As if sensing his hesitation, Luo Yi looked around the house and sighed softly. I feel a little lonely living living in such a big place. Sometimes it's so quiet that there isn't a sound at all, but when you're here, it becomes much livelier. Hearing this, Wen Xiaohui suddenly felt a pang of sympathy for Luo Yi and reassured him warmly, "Don't worry. Since I've decided to take care of you, I won't let my sister down. I'll come to see you often." Luo Yi gently stirred the fragrant coffee with a small spoon and said, "It would be great if you could move here." Wen Xiaohui scratched his hair awkwardly and replied, "Actually, it is quite convenient here, but I am a little worried about my mother. Well, my father passed away a few years ago, you know." Luo Yi nodded softly and said, "I heard from my mother." Wen Xiaohui sighed and continued, "Well, my mother looks very fierce, but she is actually very dependent on me. I can't leave her alone at home often, but I will come to live here occasionally. I'll go back and discuss it with my mother." Hearing this, Luo Yi smiled warmly and said, "Then I'll wait for your good news." As they walked out the door, Wen Xiaohui suddenly asked, "How do I get to XX Road from here? Is there a subway or bus stop nearby?" Luo Yi replied calmly, "I'll check for you later. I'll take you there today." Wen Xiaohui raised his brows and said with a small laugh, "Oh, you're going to take me there on your bike? It's a long way, right? You'll be late for school." Luo Yi shook his head and said, "Not bad. About 20 minutes. I won't be late." "Okay, let's go," Wen Xiaohui agreed. And as he sat down on the back seat of the bike, he repeated cheerfully, "Okay, let's go." As usual, Luo Yi put earphones in his ears, and at that time Wen Xiaohui asked, "What are you listening to?" Luo Yi gave him one earphone and said, "Take a listen." Wen Xiaohui put it in his ear and suddenly felt as if he had gone back a year when he was also riding his bike and listening to music. Soon after, Luo Yi dropped him off at the studio, and Wen Xiaohui jumped off the bike, stretched his body and said, "Thanks, you should go to class." Luo Yi looked at him and said, "I'll come see you tonight. Let's go eat together." Wen Xiaohui shook his head and replied, "No, I didn't go home yesterday. I have to go today, otherwise my mom will eat me. Let's do it another day." Luo Yi looked a little disappointed and said, "Okay, then But before he could finish, a red Mini Cooper suddenly turned in and stopped roughly next to them, barely 20 centimeters away, startling them both. Wen Xiaohui frowned, raised his eyebrows, and cursed loudly, "Who is blind and looking for death?" The window rolled down, and Luca peeked out from inside, his delicately made-up face glancing at them. "Wow, Adrian, you're more environmentally friendly today than taking the subway. You're a role model for low-carbon travel," he said while clapping in a mocking way. Wen Xiaohui rolled his eyes, and in front of Luo Yi, swallowed back the harsh words he wanted to say. Instead, he muttered, "I don't know what they traded to get this car, and they're not even afraid of getting burned sitting in it." Luca sneered, "You're just jealous. If you have the guts, go sell it too." Wen Xiaohui narrowed his eyes, and with lightning speed, reached out to cover Luo Yi's ears. Leaning close to Luca, he bared his sharp white teeth and whispered coldly, "I won't sell it as cheaply as you." Luca's face turned ugly as he retorted, "I don't think you can even get the price, so you're so desperate that you prey on minors." Furious, Wen Xiaohui snapped, "This is my nephew. If you don't get out of here, you won't be able to drive home today." Luca responded with a middle finger, closed the window, and drove off. Wen Xiaohui let go of Luo Yi's ears, his chest rising and falling with anger. Luo Yi then asked calmly, "Is that your colleague?" Wen Xiaohui replied irritably, "Yeah, he's such a jerk." Luo Yi looked at him curiously. "Do you have a grudge against him?" Wen Xiaohui snorted, "If there's a grudge, it's just that he's jealous of me. Jealous that I'm prettier than him, have more regular customers, and am more respected. He always finds fault with me. It's so annoying." Luo Yi glanced at the car that had left and asked thoughtfully, "He's not from here, is he?" Wen Xiaohui looked puzzled. "Huh? No. What's wrong?" Luo Yi shook his head. "Nothing. No need to bother with him." Wen Xiaohui exhaled sharply. Mean people will get what they deserve. I won't bother with him. You should go to class." Luo Yi nodded. "Okay, see you someday." "See you later," Wen Xiaohui replied, taking a deep breath before walking into the studio. Inside, his female colleague Xiao Ai teasingly asked, "Who was that boy with you on the bike earlier? So handsome, so cute. You didn't even change your clothes today. Was it last night?" Wen Xiaohui quickly shouted, "That's my nephew! What are you thinking?" Xiao Ai widened her eyes. "Nephew? How old is he? Weren't you an only child?" Wen Xiaohui smiled and explained, "He's only 15, from a distant cousin's family." Xiao Ai pouted and said, "He's only 3 years younger than me. Forget it. I'll wait for him to grow up." Wen Xiaohui chuckled, placed a hand on her shoulder and asked, "What's wrong? Did you fight with your boyfriend again?" Xiao Ai sighed softly. "I suspect he's cheating, but I have no evidence." Before lunch, Raven arrived and called Wen Xiaohui into the office. A little nervous, Wen Xiaohui entered Raven's chamber. Raven leaned back in his chair and said calmly, "There are many people like Luca in this circle. He's the first one you've encountered, but he won't be the last, nor the most difficult. If you want to continue down this path, you have to be mentally prepared." Wen Xiaohui was confused and muttered, "Oh." Raven then asked, "Do you know who introduced Luca?" Luca? Wen Xiaohui answered, It's Sister Xiaoyan. Raven nodded. Yes, and I was the one who recruited you. I heard before that the 3 partners of Juxing were trying to squeeze the other 2 out. Perhaps when they partnered to build this studio, they never expected it would grow into a nationally renowned styling studio. Raven smiled and said, Why are you standing all the time? Sit down. Although Wen Xiaohui was a little confused, he realized that Raven was trying to win him over, so he quickly sat down, thinking perhaps his chance had finally come. Raven continued, There's a charity dinner being held by the XX group in a couple of days at the Shangri-La Hotel. Many celebrities have been invited, and I'm invited too. I'm supposed to be doing Li Hua's makeup that day. Do you want to go and help me? Wen Xiaohui was stunned by his words, because Li Hua was a top actress in China and had a good relationship with Raven, and usually Raven always brought her own assistant, so there was no way an intern like him would ever get a turn. Overwhelmed with excitement, Wen Xiaohui said, Thank you, Raven. I'm so excited. Raven glanced at him with a smile and said, If Akai hadn't had something urgent to do, I wouldn't have taken you. If you go, you have to do your best and not embarrass me. Wen Xiaohui immediately replied, Absolutely not. Raven nodded and said, Go buy some nice clothes. Yes, Wen Xiaohui responded with determination. Then Raven whispered, Don't tell Luca about this yet, or he'll come and mess with you again. Wen Xiaohui assured him, Don't worry, I won't tell him. That evening, when Wen Xiaohui returned home with a smile, he hugged his mother and said, Don't be angry. Xiaoai had a fight with her boyfriend. She is so pitiful. I stayed to comfort her last night. His mother, however, frowned and said, You are getting more and more disobedient as you grow up. If I had known, I would have thrown you in the trash can. Wen Xiaohui chuckled and replied, I was so beautiful when I was a child. You couldn't bear to let me go. To which his mother retorted proudly, The reason you look like this is because of my good genes, and because I raised you well. At the dinner table, Wen Xiaohui kept talking about irrelevant things for a long time before pretending to be casual and saying, Mom, I have a colleague who lives on XX Road, very close to the studio. Her relatives went back to their hometown and left a room vacant. His mother frowned and asked, Do you want to move out? Wen Xiaohui quickly replied, No, I don't have the money to move out. My colleague is timid, and as a girl, she's afraid to live alone. She wants me to stay with her every now and then. I've been so exhausted lately. The studio is so far from home, and I spend 3 hours commuting every day. Especially on the night shift, I get home in the middle of the night. I'm really exhausted. I was thinking, if I work the night shift, I'll sleep over at her place. His mother thought for a moment and asked, Is it safe? And what about your meals? Wen Xiaohui answered, Not unsafe at all. That neighborhood is nice. And 2 adults won't starve to death, will they? After hearing this, his mother sighed and said, All right, I also think you come back too late from the late shift, but no matter what, both of you must pay attention to safety. Wen Xiaohui felt a little guilty. Although he hadn't done anything wrong, he had lied to his mother after all, but he really wanted to go to Luo Yi's place. It wouldn't disappoint Yaya's trust in him, and most importantly, it would give him a break from the long commute, which was so important to him. That night, before going to bed, Luo Yi texted Wen Xiaohui, Brother Xiaohui, what are you doing? Wen Xiaohui replied, Getting ready for bed. What else can I do? Luo Yi asked, Have you done your leg stretches yet? I found a tutorial online for you. If you don't have time to go to the gym, you can follow the video. Wen Xiaohui couldn't help but smile. This kid was smart, polite, and attentive. He knew everything without being told, and he wasn't arrogant at all. There was simply nothing wrong with him. All of Wen Xiaohui's initial worries had disappeared after spending just one night with Luo Yi, and now he even felt grateful to have met him. He immediately called. Luo Yi's cool and pleasant voice came through the phone. What's wrong? Wen Xiaohui said with excitement. Hey, I have good news to tell you. Luo Yi curiously asked. What good news? Wen Xiaohui replied, My mother agreed. Luo Yi's voice instantly turned happy. Wow, great. When will you move in? Wen Xiaohui explained, It's not about moving. I said I can't move. It's like this. I work 3 night shifts a week, and it's already 9:30 or 10 o'clock when I get off. I'm so tired by then. I told my mother that a colleague asked me to stay at her place, so when I work night shifts, I won't go home. She agreed. Luo Yi said with relief, That's great. Ms. Feng won't worry too much about you now. Wen Xiaohui smiled and said, Yeah, otherwise I wouldn't be at ease with my mother. Save the video for me. I'll try it tomorrow. Luo Yi replied, No problem. Then Wen Xiaohui added, By the way, I have another good news to tell you. Luo Yi laughed and said, Okay, I'm listening. Wen Xiaohui proudly told him, Our boss is taking me to a charity gala with tons of celebrities. It's his first time taking me out because his assistant is out of the country. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gotten the chance. I'm so excited I can't sleep. Luo Yi chuckled and said warmly, Brother Xiaohui, you're amazing. Wen Xiaohui's tone was already smug as he replied, It's nothing amazing, just good luck. Luo Yi, however, spoke modestly but firmly. Opportunities only come to those who are prepared. Because you were well prepared, you didn't let it slip away. Hearing this, Wen Xiaohui laughed and said, You really know how to talk, kid. Luo Yi then said, Come over tomorrow, I'll make you something delicious, and we'll celebrate. Wen Xiaohui's eyes lit up with joy as he said, Great, but it's strange. Even though I've only just met you, it feels like I've known you for a long time. I've never felt this way with anyone else. To this, Luo Yi softly replied, Maybe it's because I have your familiar blood in me. Wen Xiaohui's heart softened and he he said, "It must be." The next night, after finishing his shift, he went straight to Luo Yi's house. Although it was already 10 o'clock in the evening, the villa was brightly lit, and upon entering, he saw the table filled with exquisite dishes and snacks. Shocked, Wen Xiaohui cried out, "You really made so many things!" Luo Yi smiled and said, "Didn't you say you can't eat well at night? If there are always guests, you won't even be able to eat a box lunch." Wen Xiaohui was so touched that he couldn't help but pinch Luo Yi's face and said, "You kid, whoever marries you must have accumulated blessings for 8 lifetimes." Luo Yi chuckled and said, "Eat quickly." Jumping to the table, Wen Xiaohui warned, "Don't make so much next time. It's easy to get fat if you eat at night. I must control my waist circumference within 70. Luo Yi suggested, "Why don't you get up in the morning and run with me?" Wen Xiaohui shook his head vigorously. "Impossible. I can't get up." Luo Yi teased with a grin. "I'll carry you out. You'll wake up right away." Wen Xiaohui shuddered as if electrocuted, then calmed down quickly and stammered, "Huh? I'm definitely not going." Luo Yi just smiled and shook his head. After dinner, Wen Xiaohui rubbed his belly and lay on the sofa, laughing heartily while watching a variety show. Just as he was enjoying it, Luo Yi suddenly stepped in front of the TV, his nearly 5'8" frame completely blocking the screen. Annoyed, Wen Xiaohui said, "Hey, don't block me." Luo Yi then pulled out a gift box from behind his back and said, "Brother Xiaohui, this is a gift for you." Wen Xiaohui's eyes lit up in surprise. "Wow, why are you giving me a gift?" Luo Yi replied softly, "Congratulations on your career progress, and also to commemorate our acquaintance." Embarrassed, Wen Xiaohui rubbed his hands and said, "I haven't prepared anything for you." But Luo Yi handed him the box, staring deeply into his eyes with sincerity, and said, "You coming to me is the best gift I have ever received in my life." Wen Xiaohui quickly took the gift box and said, "Oh, that's so thoughtful, thank you. What is it?" Luo Yi replied, "Open it and take a look." Wen Xiaohui pulled the bow ribbon and opened the gift box, and inside was a pure black leather shirt. His mouth dropped open, stunned for a moment before he exclaimed, "It's beautiful." He picked up the shirt and rubbed it against his face, savoring the soft leather, and said, "Wow, so comfortable, so beautiful. You have a good eye. This shirt is gorgeous, must be expensive." Luo Yi smiled and said, "It's okay. It's your first dinner party, so this should suit you perfectly." Wen Xiaohui blew him a kiss and said, "Luo Yi, I love you so much. I'll try it on right now." Excitedly, he took off his t-shirt and began to change on the spot. Wen Xiaohui was thin, with fair, delicate skin, like a flawless piece of cloth, more alluring than any expensive fabric. Luo Yi watched him change into his new clothes, the black shirt accentuating his pale complexion. Wen Xiaohui jumped off the sofa and came to the dressing mirror in the porch, looking at himself from left to right, and said, "Damn, so handsome. How come I look so good? It's just that these jeans don't fit." Luo Yi explained, "The size of the pants is hard to grasp, so I didn't buy them." Wen Xiaohui hurriedly said, "Ah, that's not what I meant. I was planning to go clothes shopping tomorrow. My boss told me to wear something nice, but he won't reimburse me." Luo Yi smiled and said, "I'll reimburse you." Wen Xiaohui frowned and replied, "No, that won't work. How can you spend it so recklessly?" Although he had control over Luo Yi's living expenses, he felt embarrassed to spend it all on himself, especially on luxury goods. No matter how thick-skinned he was, he couldn't bring himself to do it. Luo Yi then said, "I have a suit I wore last year at home. Do you want to try it on? I was about the same height as you last year." Wen Xiaohui's face lit up, and he replied, "Great. If it fits, I'll save you money." Unlike Luo Yi's room full of collections, his wardrobe was much simpler, neatly organized by season, occasion, and color. It wasn't a large number, but all of it was of excellent quality. Luo Yi took out 2 pairs of trousers and handed them to Wen Xiaohui and said, "Try them on." Wen Xiaohui changed into them without hesitation, while Luo Yi turned around to tidy up his wardrobe, not looking. Adjusting his clothes in the mirror, Wen Xiaohui grinned and said, Hey, it fits perfectly. I must take a bunch of photos and post them on Weibo to annoy Luca." Luo Yi asked, "Is your colleague still giving you a hard time?" Wen Xiaohui scoffed, "He looks like he's eaten shit every day anyway. I can't tell him I'm going to the charity dinner this time. Otherwise he'll be upset for days." Luo Yi smiled and reassured him, "Don't worry, he won't bother you for long." Wen Xiaohui raised his brow and asked, "How do you know?" Luo Yi calmly said, "When you're more established, he'll have no choice but to look up to you." Wen Xiaohui laughed and said, "You're so young, but you always talk like a life mentor. Are all geniuses like you?" Luo Yi simply smiled without saying anything. Wen Xiaohui stuffed his hands into his pockets, still admiring his tall and handsome appearance, when suddenly he felt his fingers touch something and subconsciously pulled it out. "Hey, you have something in your pocket," he said curiously. He unfolded it and saw it was a small folded note. Luo Yi's eyes darkened as he held out his hand and whispered, "Give it to me." Startled, Wen Xiaohui hadn't intended to read it, but Luo Yi's expression and his gentle yet unyielding tone suddenly made him nervous. He quickly handed the note over. Luo Yi unfolded it, glanced at it quickly, and tossed it into the trash can before saying casually, "I don't know who left this number for me or when it was slipped in." Wen Xiaohui teased, "It must be a girl with a crush on you. Why don't you call her and see?" Luo Yi dismissed it softly. "No, that's not necessary, Brother Xiaohui. Do you want to try some other pants?" Wen Xiaohui shook his head. "No, these are fine." fine. Luo Yi then reminded him, "It's getting late. Go shower and get some sleep. You have an early shift tomorrow." Later, when Wen Xiaohui finished his shower and entered Luo Yi's room, he saw him still reading. As he passed by the trash can, for some reason, his eyes flicked down and noticed that the note that had clearly been thrown on top was now gone. Wen Xiaohui thought that Luo Yi must have picked it up and might actually call the number, but deep down, he still felt a sense of indescribable weirdness. Luo Yi then put down his book and gave him a perfect smile, saying, "Let's exercise." Wen Xiaohui quickly jumped onto the bed and asked Luo Yi, "Where's the leg kicking video? Show it to me." Luo Yi opened his iPad and showed him the tutorial, which involved curling and stretching the toes in sync with breathing, making Wen Xiaohui feel dizzy. So Luo Yi set the iPad aside and said, "I've watched it many times, let me teach you." "Oh, okay," Wen Xiaohui muttered. Luo Yi then reached for Wen Xiaohui's thin ankle and instructed, "Kick your foot up when you inhale," making Wen Xiaohui feel nervous for no reason. "Don't hold your breath, inhale," Luo Yi added, his slender fingers moving from ankle to sole as he demonstrated, "Hook your toes hard like this, and when your legs are fully straightened, straighten your toes. Exhale at this time." But Wen Xiaohui couldn't bear it and pulled his feet back suddenly, his hands clenching as his heart pounded like a drum. Luo Yi blinked in confusion. "What's wrong with you?" Stretching. It hurts a little," Wen Xiaohui stammered. "This move isn't difficult. Try a few more times and you'll be fine," Luo Yi reassured. "I've got it. I can do it myself," Wen Xiaohui said quickly, though Luo Yi seemed doubtful, asking, "You really got it?" "Yes, it's very simple. Don't worry, go to sleep. I'll practice on my own," Luo Yi murmured. "Oh, but it won't hurt to practice for a while. I'll help you with your form." Determined, Wen Xiaohui recited the video steps in his head, carefully pushing his legs. Luo Yi reminded, "Brother Xiaohui, don't hold your breath. Exhale as you lower your foot," reaching for his calf. But Wen Xiaohui cut him off with a flustered, "I know." Luo Yi laughed. "What do you know?" "I've got the key. I know how to do it," Wen Xiaohui insisted. "Good, keep going," Luo Yi encouraged, and Wen Xiaohui finished 3 precise sets. "Good job, very standard. I'll buy you a yoga mat tomorrow. It's not good for your back to practice on the mattress," Luo Yi praised. "Oh, thank you," Wen Xiaohui replied, tucking into the covers and yawning. "I'm really sleepy." Luo Yi switched off the lights, sliding under his own quilt on the wide 2-meter bed. They had separate blankets, but Wen Xiaohui, even with his back turned, still felt Luo Yi's presence behind him. He touched his burning face and scolded himself for blushing like this in front of a younger boy, thinking he must find a boyfriend soon, or he'd fall ill from holding everything inside. On Saturday afternoon, just as Wen Xiaohui was about to leave work, Raven came up and ordered, "Meet me downstairs at your house at 4. I'm taking you to Li Hua's for hairstyling, then we'll head to Shangri-La with her." But Wen Xiaohui had already promised to do Sister Sherry's makeup for her crucial interview. Raven shrugged. "That's your problem, so you don't want to go?" Torn, Wen Xiaohui finally said, "I'll go with you," and Raven patted his cheek, smirking. "You're such a brat." Heart heavy, Wen Xiaohui called Sherry, hesitating between truth and lies before softly saying, "Our boss wants to take me to a charity dinner. It's a very important opportunity for me, so..." Silence stretched until Sherry replied in a low tone, "Xiaohui, I made an appointment with you first. Time is tight, where can I find someone else now?" Her voice, though calm, made his face burn with guilt. Flustered, he apologized. "I'm sorry, Sister Sherry. I'll ask my friend to help you, free of charge next time. Anytime you need me, I'll..." But the line had already gone dead. Rushing home, guilt gnawed at him. He wondered if what he did was truly right, because never before had he broken a promise. He resolved to apologize later, but reminded himself this was the opportunity he had long waited for, and he simply could not afford to miss it. After getting in the car, Raven looked Wen Xiaohui up and down and suddenly asked, "How old are you?" Wen Xiaohui replied, 19. Raven laughed and said, "You're just like me back then. You're much better than I used to be. You're talented, smart, and good-looking. As long as you take the right path, you will definitely be famous." Wen Xiaohui smiled and said, "I'll take that as good luck from you." Raven then said, "Have you heard? We're currently negotiating an investment of 400 million yuan to open studios and schools in 14 cities across the country. This is a great opportunity for Juxing, but Luxing is worried about damaging its reputation and is unwilling to expand. Xiaoyan isn't satisfied with the profit sharing and is being too picky. If we let them mess around, this business will collapse sooner or later." Wen Xiaohui's heart pounded when he heard this, thinking to himself that Raven was speaking ill of the other 2 partners directly to him, clearly trying to force him onto his side. Raven then looked at him with a gleam in her eyes and said, "Actually, I'm reluctant to leave too, but for Juxing to go far, it can only shed some burdens. If Juxing really splits, I want the people who stay with me to be those I admire. Adi, your chance is coming soon. soon, so you have to seize it. Wen Xiaohui, you must grab this opportunity. Excited, Wen Xiaohui nodded and said yes, secretly thinking that if Juxing did split, he would definitely follow Raven. The car soon drove into a private villa complex and stopped before a luxurious villa, where Raven and Wen Xiaohui gave Li Hua a perfect makeover. Finally, having time to look around, Wen Xiaohui noticed the hall was full of so many handsome men that his eyes were dazzled. Raven glanced at him with a smile and teased, "What's wrong? Feeling a bit romantic, huh?" Embarrassed, Wen Xiaohui quickly asked, "Raven, look, who is Li Hua clinging onto?" Raven replied, "That's the younger brother of the chairman of XX Group, Xiao Shuqing's youngest son, Xiao Kun. I advise you not to mess with him. He's quite the playboy. I asked Hua Hua to help with the introduction, and she's already slept with him." When Wen Xiaohui finally met Xiao Kun, he forced a smile and said, "Young Master Xiao, hello." But inside, he was reminded of his scumbag ex. Raven handed Xiao Kun his business card and said, "Feel free to visit Juxing when you're free. Hua Hua's styling has always been my work." Just then, a slightly plump middle-aged man approached, and Raven's face lit up as he introduced him to Wen Xiaohui. "This is Mr. Luo, the general manager of XX Investment." Turning to Luo, Raven said, "This is my little assistant Adrian. You can call him Adi. He's only 18, but is the future backbone of our Juxing." Mr. Luo smiled at Wen Xiaohui, his eyes scanning him with a hint of impertinence. Feeling uncomfortable, Wen Xiaohui forced a smile and greeted him. "Hello, Mr. Luo," while shaking his hand, though his intuition screamed that Mr. Luo had intentions toward him. Raven told him to exchange numbers with Mr. Luo so he could find him directly next time he visited the shop. Wen Xiaohui didn't want to, but Luo had already pulled out his phone, leaving him no choice. Raven even added, "Adi works the early shift every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Mr. Luo, you can take him out for a nice meal anytime. The new Italian restaurant on XX Road is good. Adi said he wanted to go there last time." Wen Xiaohui fumed inwardly, thinking, who said I wanted Italian food? He couldn't believe Raven sold him out so openly without any shame. After writing down the number, Mr. Luo gave him an ambiguous smile and invited him for drinks later. Wen Xiaohui's smile faltered, and Raven noticed. He quickly declined, saying, "Sorry, Mr. Luo, it's too late today. I have to go home, otherwise my mom will scold me." Raven smoothed things over with a laugh. "Mr. Luo, you had fun today. Let's talk about the contract another day." After Mr. Luo left, Wen Xiaohui's mood soured. When they sat down for the charity dinner, Raven scolded him. "Why are you so stupid? You wear your emotions on your face. Do you want to embarrass me or Mr. Luo? He's the main person in charge of our project. You're not allowed to offend him." Wen Xiaohui said softly, "I didn't mean to." Raven sighed and said, "I really want to nurture you, but you keep pushing opportunities away." Wen Xiaohui lowered his head and said, "I understand what you're saying, but I can't do this." Raven, clearly displeased, told him, "All right then, go home." Instead of sending him home, Raven dropped him at the subway entrance. Feeling upset, Wen Xiaohui reflected bitterly that he had turned down Sister Sherry's invitation to socialize with the boss, only to be sold out by the boss himself to please investors. Standing before the two subway lines heading in opposite directions, one leading home, the other to Luo Yi, he decided to take whichever train came first. The rumble of the subway soon echoed in his ears, and closing his eyes, he felt a flicker of anticipation in his heart. When he opened them, the train had stopped on his left, and as the doors slid open, he strode in. Arriving at Luo Yi's place, he rang the doorbell. The door soon opened, and Luo Yi, slightly surprised to see him, asked, "Why are you here?" Wen Xiaohui smiled and said, "It's too late. I was too lazy to go home." Luo Yi replied, "Come in. It's still a bit cold tonight. Brother Xiaohui, you look so handsome today." Wen Xiaohui answered, "Hey, it took me an hour just to put on my makeup today. You can't even find a pore on my skin." Luo Yi asked, "Have you eaten yet? Are you hungry?" Wen Xiaohui sighed, "Starving. I've been drinking all night. No one's eating, so I was afraid to eat either." Luo Yi said, "I'll make you some wontons." Wen Xiaohui agreed, "Okay, I'll go change my clothes first." Back in his bedroom, he looked at himself in the mirror. Though wearing an expensive suit, his face was weary, the powder failing to mask his exhaustion. All he wanted was to change into comfortable pajamas and enjoy a good meal. When he came downstairs, Luo Yi had already prepared wontons. Wen Xiaohui sat down and devoured them as though he hadn't eaten in days. Luo Yi smiled and teased, "Are you that hungry? Go slow. Don't burn yourself." Wen Xiaohui wiped his mouth and whispered, "Luo Yi, why don't you ask me how the party was tonight?" Luo Yi replied, "You didn't look very happy." Wen Xiaohui said, "I met a lot of people, celebrities, directors, top designers, and stylists." Luo Yi said, "That's great," but Wen Xiaohui frowned bitterly. "What's great about it? I met them, but they'll forget me the next moment." Luo Yi encouraged, "Take your time. Sooner or later, everyone will remember you." Wen Xiaohui gave a bitter smile. "I did something very unkind today." Luo Yi asked, "What's wrong?" Though Wen Xiaohui kept quiet about Mr. Luo, thinking such things shouldn't be told to children, he admitted the matter with Sister Sherry. After listening, Luo Yi said, "That was indeed inappropriate. Wait 3 days. Let her calm down, then call and apologize." Wen Xiaohui nodded. "I regret it. Tonight's party was was really boring. Luo Yi gently said, "In the future, you'll understand. Some things you may or may not do, but if you make an appointment, don't break it if you can help it." Wen Xiaohui chuckled. "You've switched on life mentor mode again. Anyway, I heard a lot of gossip tonight." Luo Yi grinned. "Oh, tell me." Wen Xiaohui said, "You know Li Hua, right? She's dating an aristocrat 9 years younger. I saw him tonight too. Super handsome, but so arrogant he wouldn't even look at us. His personality is terrible, and I heard he's promiscuous and not afraid of diseases." Luo Yi laughed. "That's the entertainment industry, all kinds of people." After finishing a large bowl of wontons, Wen Xiaohui rubbed his belly with satisfaction. "Delicious. Did you make them yourself?" Luo Yi smiled. "Yeah, with shrimp filling." Wen Xiaohui said, "Luo Yi, you're really versatile." Luo Yi then pulled out a key, placed it on the table, and said, "Brother Xiaohui, this is for you. It's the key to your home. Don't lose it. It's hard to make a duplicate." Wen Xiaohui held the key, a warm current flooding his heart. Nothing in the world felt warmer than having another home. Not just a house, but a home. He smiled. "Thank you." The next day, he swapped shifts with a colleague and took the day off, spending it with Luo Yi, playing games at home. Sitting on the floor, Wen Xiaohui was munching grapes that Luo Yi popped into his mouth. Luo Yi asked, "Brother Xiaohui, morning or evening shift tomorrow?" Wen Xiaohui said, "Morning shift." Luo Yi replied, "Then you'll have to go home and sleep tomorrow." Wen Xiaohui nodded. "Yeah." Luo Yi pouted. "Tomorrow's the weekend. I wanted to go out and play with you." Wen Xiaohui comforted. "You can come by in the afternoon, but I have to head back at night." Luo Yi agreed. "Okay, I haven't been to your studio yet. Last time I only went downstairs." Wen Xiaohui turned to him and said, "Remember, don't call me Brother Xiaohui in the studio." Luo Yi asked, "Why?" Wen Xiaohui smirked. "That name's so unfashionable. Call me Adrian or Adi, remember?" Luo Yi chuckled. "Don't worry, I have a good memory." Wen Xiaohui muttered, "That bastard Luca will be there tomorrow. No matter what he says or does, just ignore him." Luo Yi grinned. "What can he do?" Wen Xiaohui shrugged. "Who knows? Don't worry, I won't let him bully you." Luo Yi reassured. "Okay." His words reminded Wen Xiaohui that no matter how much he wanted to escape, he still had to return to work tomorrow, unless Raven fired him. But he doubted that would happen. If he ever left the studio, it would be because he was too disgusted to stay, not because Raven pushed him out. For now, since it hadn't come to that, he might as well carry on. Sitting up, he pulled out his phone and fiddled with it. Luo Yi asked, "What are you doing?" Wen Xiaohui showed him a selfie he had taken yesterday and asked, "Posting a photo. How about this filter?" Luo Yi said, "Not bad. Why don't you try the Lomo style?" Wen Xiaohui, with a sly smile, replied, "Luca will be so angry if he sees this on Weibo that he won't be able to sleep all night." After editing the Weibo post, Wen Xiaohui suddenly remembered something, put his arm around Luo Yi's shoulder and said, "We haven't taken any photos together yet." Luo Yi stretched out his finger and gently pressed against the camera lens. Wen Xiaohui was stunned and asked, "What's wrong?" Luo Yi replied calmly, "I don't like putting pictures online." Wen Xiaohui, puzzled, asked curiously, "Why? You're so good looking, I want to show it off." Luo Yi simply smiled and said, "I just don't like it." Wen Xiaohui asked, "Hasn't anyone at school ever taken a secret picture of you?" Luo Yi replied, "Maybe, but no one dared to put it online." Wen Xiaohui found it incredible. He could understand someone hiding their wealth, but he had never seen anyone so good-looking hide their face. If he looked like Luo Yi, he would have jumped into the entertainment industry without hesitation. He said, "Then I won't put it online. Let's just take a picture." Luo Yi agreed. "Okay, but the picture can only stay on your phone." Wen Xiaohui assured him, "Don't worry," then hooked his shoulder again, tilted his face toward the camera, and posed at his best angle. Luo Yi smiled at the screen. No forced expression, yet breathtakingly beautiful. Wen Xiaohui stared at him and thought to himself, "I can't help but look at someone like this." After taking a few photos, Wen Xiaohui picked the best one, sent it to Luo Yi and said, "Keep it. I don't mind if you use it as your wallpaper." Luo Yi opened his phone and stared at the photo, and Wen Xiaohui chuckled. "What's wrong? Are you mesmerized by your own beauty?" Luo Yi smiled and said, "You're the first person besides Mom I've ever taken a photo with." Wen Xiaohui, surprised, asked, "Really? You've never taken a photo with anyone else other than my sister?" Luo Yi confirmed, "Really, I don't like taking pictures, and I especially don't like taking them with people." Wen Xiaohui rubbed his nose and asked, "So, are you mad that I asked you to take a photo with me?" Luo Yi smiled gently and said, "Of course not. You're family to me, just like Mom." Wen Xiaohui's face lit up with joy. The next morning at work, he unsurprisingly saw Luca's sour face. Xiao Ai walked over and said, "Adi, baby, I saw your Weibo. If I'd known you were going to the party, I would have asked you to get Li Hua's autograph." Wen Xiaohui, deliberately raising his voice, replied, "What autograph? It's tacky to ask for one in a place like that. I was a guest." As expected, Luca let out a mocking snort. Xiao Ai pouted, winked, and whispered, "I'm jealous," and the two laughed together. Luca sneered, "What a joke. Are you trying to be the second Akai?" Wen Xiaohui rolled his eyes and shot back, "What's wrong with being the second Akai? He's doing so well now that Raven sent him abroad for training." Luca looked around to make sure they were the only three in the studio, then whispered, "You don't know, do you? That popular Lin Long makeup design a while ago was actually Akai's work." As As for studying abroad, it's just to heal his wounds. Wen Xiaohui said coldly, "True or not, you're bold to spread gossip about Raven." Luca smirked. "Anyway, Juxing will split up soon. I sincerely hope you become his next right-hand man." Wen Xiaohui countered, "Xiaoyan never took you out to meet people. Is it because you can't be seen, or because you shouldn't be seen?" Luca grinned maliciously and said, "You at least have a face worth showing. Raven will definitely get a good price for you." Enraged, Wen Xiaohui kicked a stool, fists clenched, ready to tear Luca's mouth apart, shouting, "You're always spewing crap. Let me teach you how to talk like a human." Xiaoai quickly hugged his waist and pleaded, "Xiaohui, stop. Calm down. Luca, can you please shut up?" Luca snorted and darted into the storage room. Xiaoai sighed and complained, "It's been so long. You should be used to him. What's wrong with you today? Why even bother with him?" But Wen Xiaohui knew deep down that Raven was fully capable of what Luca had implied, and the thought left him uneasy about his future. After a busy morning, Luo Yi showed up near the end of his shift. Xiaoai exclaimed excitedly, "Adi, your handsome relative is here." Wen Xiaohui, blow-drying a customer's hair, looked over and called, "Luo Yi, sit down for a moment. I'm almost done." Luo Yi sat quietly on the sofa by the door, his eyes scanning the studio as he watched Wen Xiaohui working with sharp professionalism, a stark contrast to his usual carefree self. Suddenly, someone approached him, saying, "Handsome guy, have some water." Luo Yi looked up and saw Luca, smirking as he placed a glass of water in front of him. Luca glanced at Luo Yi and asked mockingly, "Are you Adrian's relative? You don't look alike at all. Are you going to tie me up here?" Luo Yi replied calmly, "I saw your front desk work records. You were the ones who entered them. If you leave first, I'll cut your client intake by half." Luca's eyes widened in rage. "You! What did you say? You dare!" he shouted. But before he could continue, Wen Xiaohui ran over, stunned. After being tricked by Luca so many times, how had he never considered doing something like this? Luo Yi then stood up, half a head taller than Luca, and said firmly, "I dare you. The work isn't done yet, so you'd better stay here." Luca instinctively took a step back, but at that moment the studio door opened and Raven walked in, expressionless, saying, "Your shift will be later today. An investor is coming to visit the studio." With him were Xiaoyan and Liu Xing, the other two partners of Juxing's studio. Wen Xiaohui had never seen all three of them appear together and immediately grew uneasy, thinking, "Oh no, what if the investor coming is that President Luo?" Seeing his worried expression, Luo Yi asked, "What's wrong?" Wen Xiaohui whispered, "There's an investor who's quite perverted. I don't want to see his face if he comes today." Luo Yi smirked and said, "Then maybe the negotiation will be interesting." Wen Xiaohui frowned. "Interesting? What do you mean?" Luo Yi replied, "I'm talking about the negotiation." Wen Xiaohui shook his head. "We won't see it. They'll talk in the office." But before long, the studio door was slammed open, and a tall, muscular, middle-aged woman stormed in with two black-clad bodyguards. Before anyone could react, she swung her hand and slapped Luca so hard he almost fell to the ground. Everyone froze in shock. Luo Yi stood behind Wen Xiaohui, arms crossed with a faint, imperceptible smile. Luca staggered back, but before he could recover, the woman shouted furiously, "Shameless dog! How dare you seduce my husband? Don't you know who I am? Are you looking for death?" Just then, the office door opened, and Raven, Xiaoyan, and Liu Xing rushed out, all frightened by the scene. Xiaoyan said awkwardly, "President Chen, there must be some misunderstanding," but the woman cut him off coldly. "Misunderstanding? That car is under my husband's name. Every penny he spends is our marital property. I'll sue him for fraud. Should I smash this studio or teach him a lesson? You choose." Xiaoyan paled and stepped back, while the others stood frozen in silence. After an unbearable pause, Liu Xing finally spoke. "We're closing for half the day. Everyone, go home." Seizing the chance, Wen Xiaohui grabbed his bag, pulled Luo Yi along, and hurried outside. Luo Yi chuckled and said, "What are you afraid of? They're not going to hit you." Wen Xiaohui huffed nervously. "Yeah, but it was still terrifying. That auntie is so fierce, even scarier than my mom. And at least my mom doesn't bring black-clad bodyguards with her." Luo Yi laughed softly. "Come on, let's go eat something delicious to celebrate." Wen Xiaohui blinked. "Celebrate? Celebrate what?" Luo Yi's eyes gleamed. "Luca can't work at Juxing anymore. Isn't that good news?" Wen Xiaohui frowned, conflicted. "I've always hoped he'd leave, but honestly, I'd rather see him grovel before me once I become a top stylist than have him end like this. Though, I guess he deserves it too." Luo Yi calmly took out his phone and said, "He really does deserve it. I secretly recorded the whole thing. You can watch it whenever you want." Wen Xiaohui froze, shocked. "You, what? Why did you record that?" Luo Yi smiled innocently. "Isn't it interesting? Do you want me to post it online? I can create a virtual actual IP for you and guarantee no one will ever trace it back. Wen Xiaohui's heart skipped a beat, suddenly uneasy. Luo Yi's smile in that moment made him feel a chill down his spine. He stammered, No, don't, delete it. I don't want to see it again. Luo Yi shrugged casually. I thought you'd be happy. Anyway, from now on, he won't bother you again. Wen Xiaohui sighed softly. Yeah, but suddenly I remembered something you said. Luo Yi tilted his head. What did I say? Wen Xiaohui murmured. You once told me there are two kinds of bad people. Those who are easy to recognize and those who are hard to recognize. Luca is the easy kind, so I was always on guard against him. He could only disgust me, but never truly hurt me. The dangerous kind are the ones who only turn bad when their interests are threatened. I think my boss might be that kind of person. Luo Yi's eyes narrowed slightly. Did he do something to you? Wen Xiaohui shook his head. Nothing yet. I just heard some gossip. Maybe I'm overthinking. Forget it. Let's eat something tasty instead of worrying about others. Luo Yi placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. If you ever feel something's wrong with him, remember to tell me. Wen Xiaohui gave a weary smile. The adult world is complicated. Telling you won't change much. Luo Yi responded firmly. At least I can give you advice. It's better than you carrying it alone, right? Wen Xiaohui stretched his arms and laughed lightly. That's true. Okay then. Enough of these annoying topics. Let's just walk around and find something delicious to eat. As expected, Luca never came to work again. And although Wen Xiaohui felt uneasy at first, after a few days of gossip in the studio, the buzz faded, life returned to normal, and it was as if Luca had never existed. 2 weeks later, Xiao Ai whispered to him that she had overheard Raven and Lu Xing talking about Luca's car troubles, that he wasn't from here, couldn't afford one, and a quick search revealed the cause, though the gossip was vague and left them guessing. During this time, Mr. Luo asked Wen Xiaohui out twice, but he declined both times with excuses, leaving Mr. Luo displeased. And though Wen Xiaohui's work went on as usual, Xueli stopped visiting and no longer answered his calls. Soon, it was the National College Entrance Examination month, and one evening over dinner, Wen Xiaohui asked Luo Yi about his major. Luo Yi nodded and said he had already thought about it, and when Wen Xiaohui eagerly asked which country and if he could visit since he had never been abroad, Luo Yi, without looking up from his food, said he would not go abroad. Surprised, Wen Xiaohui asked where he planned to go, and Luo Yi casually replied that they could travel together during summer vacation, which left Wen Xiaohui puzzled, asking why he wasn't interested in so many world-famous universities. Luo Yi shook his head, and when pressed for a reason, he paused with his chopsticks, looked up, and smiled, saying, If I say I can't bear to leave you? Stunned, Wen Xiaohui scoffed that perhaps Luo Yi couldn't bear to leave his messy collection in his room, but Luo Yi insisted he was serious, confessing that for the first time he had experienced the feeling of home since growing up, explaining that books and nannies, not his parents, had raised him, and it was only after meeting Wen Xiaohui that he understood the value of home and family, which was why he didn't care about foreign universities. Anything he wanted to learn, he could learn locally, so he would stay. Embarrassed, Wen Xiaohui muttered that Luo Yi was being corny, but Luo Yi only chuckled and repeated he was serious, and the trust in his words filled Wen Xiaohui with warmth, making him realize he was falling deeper for this almost perfect boy, who felt like the truest legacy left behind by Luo Yaya. Luo Yi wiped his mouth with a tissue and whispered that he still had many things to do here, and when Wen Xiaohui asked what, Luo Yi lowered his eyes with a small smile and said, Lots and lots of interesting things. Thinking he meant his hobbies, Wen Xiaohui teased that maybe he'd bring home trophies in college, then asked his actual major, to which Luo Yi replied he was planning to double major in finance and law. Wen Xiaohui found that rather ordinary, admitting he expected a genius like Luo Yi to choose something obscure like math or archaeology, but Luo Yi explained those were just hobbies, not career paths. Wen Xiaohui remarked that jobs were hard to find, but Luo Yi would never have to worry, and Luo Yi casually added that Wen Xiaohui didn't need to worry either, because if things didn't work out at work, he could just quit, and Luo Yi would support him. Delighted, Wen Xiaohui playfully said his biggest dream was to be supported by a handsome man and live a life of indulgence, though he wished someone else had said it, prompting Luo Yi to ruffle his hair and ask why he wanted someone else. Was he afraid Luo Yi couldn't support him? Wen Xiaohui teased that Luo Yi wasn't even a man yet, so he shouldn't talk like an adult, but Luo Yi caught his hand, blushing with intensity, and declared that being a man had nothing to do with age. Startled, Wen Xiaohui pulled his hand back and told him to wait until he was over 18 before discussing such matters, but Luo Yi pressed further, reminding him of their earlier talk about the type of man he liked, asking not just about looks, but also about inner qualities and personality. Flustered, Wen Xiaohui asked why he wanted to know, and Luo Yi admitted he was curious, wondering aloud, what if I accidentally grow up to be the kind of man you like? Embarrassed, Wen Xiaohui coughed, stood, and laughed awkwardly, saying he was being ridiculous, and announcing he had finished eating, though Luo Yi pointed out he had barely eaten. Wen Xiaohui brushed it off, saying he was dieting because he had gained weight, then grabbed his phone and hurried upstairs without looking back, leaving Luo Yi watching him intently until his figure disappeared at the top of the stairs. Wen Xiaohui took a deep breath after returning to his room. He wasn't stupid. In fact, he was clever enough enough to understand the meaning behind Luo Yi's eager, expectant gaze and the meticulous care he had shown during this time, and it set alarm bells ringing in his heart. What if Luo Yi had really fallen in love with him? The thought stunned him, for Luo Yi was his sister's only bloodline, and if he was born gay, that was one thing. But if Wen Xiaohui somehow led him into it, he couldn't bear the responsibility. The idea frightened him, and he hoped desperately that it was only speculation, because otherwise things would become very troublesome, so he resolved to visit less often. At the studio one day, flipping through the calendar, Wen Xiaohui sighed, realizing Luo Yi had been admitted to XX University and was on vacation, when Xiao Ai came over and asked what he was doing. Wen Xiaohui asked if Raven would approve a week off, and Xiao Ai nodded with a grin, teasing that he could just pick from marriage leave, bereavement leave, sick leave, or maternity leave. At that moment, Raven himself emerged from the office, startled to see a guest, and exclaimed in surprise at the sight of Xiao Kun, greeting him warmly and apologizing for not knowing of his visit in advance. Xiao Kun, brushing it off, explained he was just driving by and came in to get his hair trimmed because it had grown long, then sat casually in the chair, checking his watch and urging them to hurry, as he had things to do later. Raven, with a deliberately concealed sourness, winked at Wen Xiaohui and told him to handle it carefully, leaving Wen Xiaohui wondering if he had offended Raven again. Playing it safe, Wen Xiaohui began trimming Xiao Kun's hair, focusing on the ends and back, forgetting for a moment who sat before him, until he habitually pressed a hand to Xiao Kun's temple and told him to look up. Xiao Kun's face flickered with impatience, and Wen Xiaohui quickly pulled back, his fingers awkwardly frozen midair. Xiao Kun frowned and asked sharply if he was sick or why he was afraid, and Wen Xiaohui thought privately, because you're scary. Xiao Kun set down his phone, glanced at himself in the mirror, and asked if Wen Xiaohui knew why he was really there. Wen Xiaohui shook his head, half-jokingly asking if he was trying to hit on him, which made Xiao Kun narrow his eyes and say Wen Xiaohui was confident, but too bad, he hated men who wore makeup. Wen Xiaohui cursed inwardly, wishing him to hell, but Xiao Kun went on, saying he needed a favor kept secret. He had high hopes for an investment Juxing was negotiating, but in the end, could only sign with one of the three bosses, so he needed someone to help him understand the studio, and asked if Wen Xiaohui would help him choose. The meaning was clear. Xiao Kun wanted him to act as a spy, monitoring the three partners and delivering information. Before Wen Xiaohui could respond, Xiao Kun added that the reward would be 200,000 wen, half paid up front, and a guaranteed place in the new Juxing. Shaken, Wen Xiaohui asked why Xiao Kun had chosen him, but then weakly suggested they pretend the conversation had never happened. Yet Xiao Kun pressed his phone toward him, asking for his number, and Wen Xiaohui, though hesitant, didn't dare refuse. Later at home, he called Luo Yi and recounted everything, though he hadn't wanted to give his number. Wen Xiaohui had gotten into the habit of sharing all work matters with Luo Yi, so much so that a day without telling him anything felt incomplete. After listening, Luo Yi calmly explained that Wen Xiaohui's refusal had been clumsy. Xiao Kun was clearly trying to use him to sow discord among the partners, lower the price, and acquire Juxing. And once it was done, Wen Xiaohui would likely be thrown out as the scapegoat. The thought sent a chill down Wen Xiaohui's spine, and he shivered, exclaiming that Xiao Kun was too black-hearted and that he himself had no grudge with him. But Luo Yi only remarked that such was the business world, cutthroat and ruthless, and warned him never to make decisions like that alone, promising to teach him how to counter Xiao Kun if he approached again. Relieved, Wen Xiaohui smiled and agreed to always discuss things with him, but then half-jokingly asked if perhaps Xiao Kun was interested in him and just using this as an excuse to get close. Luo Yi asked pointedly what he would do if that were true, and Wen Xiaohui admitted he hadn't thought about it, but Xiao Kun wasn't his type anyway. Suddenly, Luo Yi's tone turned firm as he warned that Wen Xiaohui absolutely could not have any relationship with Xiao Kun, that he would surely be used, because Wen Xiaohui was too trusting and inexperienced, and he confessed he was deeply worried about him. Wen Xiaohui brushed it off with a laugh, saying Luo Yi treated him like a child, but Luo Yi quietly reminded him of his first boyfriend, leaving Wen Xiaohui speechless before he awkwardly agreed, joking that it felt like their roles were reversed, with Luo Yi more like the guardian, while he himself had nothing to give in return. At that, Luo Yi's voice softened to a feather-light gentleness as he whispered, "Just stay by my side." Back home, after helping his mother clear the dishes, Wen Xiaohui and her settled back on the sofa to watch TV, when Feng Weihua, her eyes fixed on the screen, suddenly asked, "Xiaohui, you seem so happy lately. Honestly, are you in love?" Wen Xiaohui quickly denied it, saying, "No, if I were in love, I would definitely tell you." Just then, his phone buzzed with a reminder he had set months ago, Sister Sherry's birthday. Guilt instantly washed over him. Sherry had been angry with him and seemed to be ignoring him again, and though he regretted whatever had gone wrong, he didn't know how to fix it. After a long long pause, he decided to make one last call, just to wish her well, promising himself that if she still ignored him, there was nothing more he could do. Taking a deep breath, he dialed her number, and after a few rings, the line connected. His heart raced with excitement, ready to burst out a cheerful, "Happy birthday," but the voice he heard stopped him cold. A low, trembling whisper came through the receiver. "Xiaohui, please help me. My ex-husband is here right in the living room. I don't dare go out. I don't dare call the police. If I call them, I'm done for. What should I do?" Sherry's voice broke with fear, and when Xiaohui's grip on the phone tightened. Speaking firmly, he said, "Wait for me. I'll be there now. Don't open the door." Without another word, he hung up and rushed out, his mind racing. Sherry's ex-husband was a known drunkard and domestic abuser, the very reason she had escaped her hometown, and yet that beast had still tracked her down. As when Xiaohui neared her place, his phone rang again. It was Luo Yi. He answered, and Luo Yi asked casually if he had taken his shower since he had sent him a message. Xiaohui replied, "I just finished, I'll check it immediately." But Luo Yi's voice turned low and sharp. "Why did you lie? The background noise doesn't match your home. If you went out, why not tell me the truth? Where are you going?" Embarrassed and irritated, Xiaohui shot back, "Why do you care so much about adults' affairs?" Luo Yi retorted, "Brother Xiaohui, are you really an adult? Just because you're older doesn't mean you're acting like one." A spark of anger flared in Xiaohui. "Why am I not an adult? You're not the only sensible person in the world." For the first time in 3 months of knowing each other, the two clashed, leaving Xiaohui unsettled, torn between worry for Sherry and frustration with Luo Yi's persistence. Yet deep down, he was afraid of Luo Yi's anger. Moments later, Luo Yi softened, his voice calm but firm. "Brother Xiaohui, you promised me today that you would tell me everything. No matter what, don't lie. I'll always find out." Realizing he had no choice, Xiaohui confessed about Sherry's situation. By the time he reached downstairs at Sherry's building, he froze, hesitating. Should he wait for Luo Yi or rush up right away? His answer came when he heard furious banging and shouting from above. Without another thought, he bolted into the hallway, grabbed a nearby trash can, and swung it with all his might, striking Sherry's ex-husband before he could break through the door. Sherry slowly came out of the room, her face pale with fear, and when Xiaohui immediately told her, "Open the door and call the police." But Sherry shook her head frantically, her voice trembling as she said, "I really cannot call the police. I have worked so hard for what I have now." When Xiaohui frowned and replied firmly, "You can't live under his threat forever." Then softening his tone, he added, "Go wash your face first. I'll make you something to eat." After sending her to the bathroom, he let out a heavy sigh, the weight of the situation pressing on him. A little while later, Luo Yi arrived and was startled by the sight of Sherry's husband lying unconscious on the floor, blood oozing from his head, while Wen Xiaohui sat nearby, trembling and struggling to keep himself steady. Luo Yi hurried over to him and said calmly, "Breathe slowly. Don't panic." Then, gently touching Xiaohui's face, he whispered, "It's okay. I'm here." He didn't scold him, didn't say things like, "I warned you," or "I told you to wait for me." Instead, his quiet reassurance filled the frightened Xiaohui with a warmth he desperately needed, and regret pierced his heart for not listening earlier. Luo Yi poured him a glass of water and held it to his lips, helping him take a sip. Xiaohui's neck throbbed painfully, and with a raspy voice he managed to whisper, "Thank you." Stroking his hair gently, Luo Yi said, "Are you really trying to scare me to death? Never do that again." Xiaohui nodded obediently, his eyes heavy with guilt. "Take a rest. I'll take care of it," Luo Yi told him as he stood and reached for his phone to call the police, but Xiaohui quickly grabbed his hand, his voice urgent. "You can't call the police. Sister Sherry is a host." Luo Yi frowned, his tone turning serious as he replied, "This man broke in illegally and attacked someone. Now he's injured too. How do we handle this without the police?" Just then, Sherry stepped out of the bathroom, her face damp from washing, her eyes wide with confusion. "What's going on? Xiaohui, are you okay?" she asked. Forcing a small smile, Xiaohui answered, "I'm fine, Sister Sherry, but what should we do now?" Looking at her with determination, he urged again, "Call the police. What's more important, your future or your life?" Sherry shook her head, her voice breaking. "No, we can't call the police." Luo Yi's gaze darkened, his words sharp as a blade. "Then you can only kill him." Then Luo Yi added coldly, "You have ample evidence to prove that you killed him in self-defense. You won't bear any responsibility, and he'll never harass you again." His gaze dropped to Sherry's ex-husband, lying unconscious in a pool of blood, and he continued in a chilling tone, "Or you could just leave him here to bleed out, but the forensic results might not be in your favor." Shocked, Wen Xiaohui snapped, "Luo Yi, stop talking! Are you crazy?" Luo Yi's eyes met his, and for a moment, Xiaohui's heart froze, until Luo Yi suddenly curved his lips into a smile. "Sorry, I was joking. I was just so angry that he hurt you. Honestly, I wish he would die." Xiaohui's face paled and he muttered, "Don't scare me like that." Collecting himself, he added firmly, "Let's take him to the hospital to avoid trouble. Sister Sherry, you clean up the house. If things don't work out, out, just move somewhere else. Sherry, her voice trembling, thanked Xiaohui, and he answered with quiet strength, I won't let anyone bully my sister in front of me. Forcing himself up from the sofa despite the ache in his body, he said, I'll check the situation outside. Luo Yi, come help me. Together, Xiaohui and Luo Yi wiped the blood from the drunk's head as best they could, dragged his limp body downstairs, called an ambulance, handed over the medical expenses directly to the doctor, and saw the man taken away. As the ambulance disappeared into the night, Luo Yi's gaze fell on the deep purple bruises around Xiaohui's neck, and his brows knitted. It's late. Don't go back. Come to my place. I'll give you some medicine, he said firmly. Xiaohui's fingers brushed against his own swollen neck, and he hissed at the pain, dread washing over him as he wondered how he could possibly explain this to his mother. With a sigh, he nodded, pulled out his phone, and sent her a quick message that he was staying at a friend's house, then looked at Luo Yi and murmured, let's go. He raised his hand to hail a cab, but Luo Yi stopped him with a simple, no need. I drove here. Startled, Xiaohui blinked. Oh, do you even have a permit? Luo Yi naturally reached for his hand, pulling him along as he replied casually, it's late, no one's checking. At the entrance of the community, a dark blue bat gleamed under the streetlight, and Luo Yi walked straight toward it. Xiaohui's jaw dropped, his eyes widening in awe. Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Is this your car? Luo Yi's face was expressionless, his mood still heavy, and he said flatly, it's my mom's car. Get in. Ignoring the burning sting in his neck, Xiaohui leaned against the sleek body of the car with a childlike grin, exclaiming, baby, you're so beautiful. Brother Xiaohui, get in, Luo Yi said in a deep, controlled voice. Flushing, Xiaohui ducked his head guiltily and slipped into the passenger seat. In a small, cautious whisper, he said, hey, don't be angry. Luo Yi kept his eyes on the road ahead, silent. Xiaohui reached out to pinch his cheek, coaxing softly. Come on, be good. Don't be mad. I was wrong. I'll never lie to you again, really. Finally, Luo Yi turned his head and looked at him deeply, his voice low and cutting through the air. Have you ever thought about what would have happened if I hadn't arrived today? Xiaohui froze, and as he remembered the suffocating fear of that night, his chest tightened, because for the first time he realized just how close he had been to losing everything. Luo Yi took a deep breath, turned around, and pulled Wen Xiaohui tightly into his arms, resting his chin on his shoulder as he whispered hoarsely into his ear, I don't have a mother anymore. I don't want to lose you again. Xiaohui's heart clenched at those words, and he instinctively wrapped his arms around Luo Yi, stroking his back with trembling fingers. A rush of emotions flooded him, distress, guilt, and a tender warmth he couldn't put into words. In that moment, regret gnawed at him. Luo Yi had been right all along. If he hadn't shown up tonight, the consequences could have been unthinkable. Softly, Xiaohui murmured, you won't lose me. I promise, I'll never hide anything from you again. Luo Yi's long, slender fingers brushed through Xiaohui's hair as he said firmly, don't lie to me anymore. I can see right through you, so you might as well be honest. Xiaohui's resistance melted, and he whispered, okay. Luo Yi gave a small nod and replied, let's go. I'll treat your injuries at home. Driving steadily, Luo Yi brought them back to his villa. Though Xiaohui had stayed there many times, tonight was the first time he ever stepped into the garage. His eyes widened when he spotted the sleek SUV parked neatly inside, clearly Yaya's. He couldn't even begin to imagine how wealthy Yaya must be. Inside, Luo Yi pulled out a medicine box, dipped a cotton swab into antiseptic, and began gently dabbing at the bruises wringing Xiaohui's neck. Ow! Xiaohui flinched, grimacing in pain. Why didn't I just cripple him? Ugh, it stings. Luo Yi's touch remained careful, his voice low and soothing. Bear with it. It'll heal soon. Pouting dramatically, Xiaohui whined, will it leave scars? I've been using neck cream since I was 16. My wrinkles are barely visible, you know. My neck is beautiful. Luo Yi chuckled softly and reassured him. It's only bruising, no scars. Your skin will be fine, but your head just needs time to recover. Even as he exhaled in relief, Xiaohui's brows furrowed again. But what about Sister Sherry? They're still legally married, and he has so many ways to threaten her. Luo Yi's face hardened as he carefully wrapped a strip of gauze around Xiaohui's neck. Don't involve yourself anymore. It's not your battle, and you can't save her by throwing yourself into danger. Xiaohui bit his lip, his chest tightening. But watching her get harassed by that scum, it makes me sick. I can't just stand by. Luo Yi met his gaze with quiet severity. No matter what, you can't do something as reckless as you did tonight. Never again. Xiaohui sighed, pulled out his phone, and suddenly snapped a selfie. Tusk, I forgot to take a picture of the car earlier, he muttered. Luo Yi raised a brow. You can take pictures whenever you like, just not of the license plate. Xiaohui winked playfully. Relax, I won't. With a long stretch, he announced, I'm going to take a bath. You should go to bed early. Luo Yi hummed, warning softly. Just don't get the bandages wet. As Xiaohui disappeared into the bathroom, the sound of running water filling the quiet room, Luo Yi's expression shifted. He slipped a hand into his pocket and pulled out a worn wallet he had picked up earlier. Flipping it open, his eyes locked on the ID card card tucked neatly inside, and his face darkened. It was Sherry's ex-husband's. At Wen Xiaohui's house, the next scene unfolded. He had been hiding out at Luo Yi's place for 2 days, but now he had no choice. He had to return home. On the way, he thought about wrapping a scarf around his bruised neck, but in the sweltering summer heat, the attempt to hide it only made it stand out even more. If Mom sees this, she's going to scold me to death, he thought nervously as he slipped quietly into his room. Just then, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen and frowned. The number was unfamiliar. Picking it up, he said cautiously, "Hello? Hello?" A low, steady voice answered. "Wen Xiaohui, I'm Xiao Kun." Xiaohui froze, his pulse quickening, and he stammered, "Hello, Mr. Xiao." His mind raced. He had forgotten that Luo Yi had said he would teach him how to handle Xiao Kun last time. Clutching the phone tightly, he added nervously, "About what you mentioned before, I still need to think it over." Xiao Kun's voice grew sharp. "Name your price." Xiaohui swallowed and forced a reply. "This isn't about money." That set Xiao Kun off. His tone turned furious. "It is about money. 99.99% of the problems in the world are money problems. I'm offering you 100 million. Why won't you accept?" Xiaohui let out an awkward laugh. "Mr. Xiao, could you at least give me more time to think about it?" Xiao Kun's voice dropped into a heavy growl. "Fine." Xiaohui grabbed his phone and fired off a text to Luo Yi. "Xiao Kun just called me. He wants dinner and drinks and asked my thoughts about what he proposed last time." Within seconds, Luo Yi replied curtly, "Busy, talk later." Before Xiaohui could process that, the door creaked open and his mother stormed in. "You're back, huh?" Feng Yuehua's eyes narrowed as they landed on his neck. In one swift move, she grabbed his ear and yanked. "What on earth happened to your neck? Did you get into a fight?" Xiaohui winced, bowing his head quickly. No, nothing like that. We were just picking up a friend that day. Everyone was drunk. He started shoving around, back and forth, and I was just trying to protect him." Yuehua scoffed, her words biting. "With that little chicken body of yours? Who exactly were you protecting?" Her gaze sharpened, suspicion dripping from her tone. "I think you're hiding something. Are you in a relationship?" Xiaohui almost laughed, half in disbelief and half in exasperation. "Really, I'm not. If I were, you'd be the first to know." But Yuehua wasn't convinced. She squinted at him, crossing her arms. "You're just like before, smiling to yourself all day, glued to your phone, sneaking calls and texts. Tell me, are you living with someone?" Xiaohui's heart skipped a beat, his palms going clammy. "I swear I'm not," he blurted, but in his mind, her words echoed uncomfortably. Could it be that the way I've been with Luo Yi really looks like I'm in a relationship? Trying to brush it off, he lightly pushed her shoulder and said, "All right, Mom, enough already. Let's cook. I'm starving." Even as he tried to act casual, his thoughts swirled. He's not my boyfriend. He's just my sister's son. Later that night, after showering, Xiaohui dialed Luo Yi. "What exactly are you so busy with during the day?" he asked. Luo Yi's calm voice came through the line. "Personal matters. By the way, about Xiao Kun, you must wait for him to make the next move. When the time comes, choose a quiet place to meet and take me with you." Xiaohui frowned. "How am I supposed to explain bringing you along?" Luo Yi replied smoothly. "Just say I'm your nephew. I'll sit beside you and play on my phone. He won't pay attention to me. What matters is that you refuse to let him use you, without offending him. That takes skill." To Luo Yi, the strategy was simple. To Xiaohui, it was unbearably complicated. He groaned into the phone. "I really don't want to go." Luo Yi said firmly, "You have to go. It's for your own good. Xiao Kun has a very bad temper, and you can't afford to offend him." Wen Xiaohui tilted his head curiously. "Do you know him?" Luo Yi hesitated before answering. "I know a little. After you told me, I asked Lawyer Cao about him. Lawyer Cao has a lot of connections in political and business circles." Xiaohui sighed inwardly. "I don't want to think about this anymore. One job is more than enough for me." Luo Yi broke the silence by asking, "By the way, has Sherry contacted you?" Xiaohui shook his head. "No, I think she needs a few days to calm down." Luo Yi's tone was steady, but firm. "If she does contact you, just comfort her, but don't give her advice about her ex-husband. To put it bluntly, stay out of their business." Xiaohui's fist clenched as frustration bubbled up. Just thinking about how her ex-husband hasn't faced any consequences yet makes me worried and angry. Luo Yi's voice deepened with gravity. "People like him will get their just desserts sooner or later." Xiaohui exhaled, some of the fire in his chest cooling. "You're right, I'll be waiting for that." Then Luo Yi's lips curved into a faint smile. "I always go to bed early when you're not here, but when you are, I just want to talk with you a little longer." Xiaohui's heart gave an involuntary skip. His mother's earlier words drifted back into his mind, and suddenly they felt almost funny. Chuckling to himself, he replied, "I still need to sleep and wake up early. Good night." Life went on. One day, while Raven was in a good mood, Wen Xiaohui tried to ask for time off because Luo Yi wanted to take him on a trip to Japan. But Raven's face immediately fell, saying they were too short on staff and wouldn't give him leave. Wen Xiaohui was deeply upset, but then he realized that if he went abroad, he wouldn't be able to explain it to his mother, so he decided not to go. Summer drifted by. 2 months slipped past, and Sherry never reached out again. Xiao Kun, too, seemed to have disappeared entirely. If not for Luo Yi asking about him twice, Xiao Hui might have completely forgotten the man. Oddly enough, Luo Yi seemed more anxious to meet Xiao Kun than Xiao Hui himself. Then, before he knew it, the time had come. Luo Yi was registering for university. Determined to stand by him, Xiao Hui volunteered to act as Luo Yi's parent for the registration, even though the school was practically next door to Luo Yi's house. When Xiao Hui specially changed his shift and took a taxi early in the morning to pick up Luo Yi from the villa, and when Luo Yi saw the taxi, he looked surprised and asked, "Why are you taking a taxi?" Xiao Hui smiled and replied, "To take you to school." Luo Yi frowned slightly and said, "My home is only a half-hour ride away." Xiao Hui argued, "You're a new student starting school, don't you have anything to bring?" But Luo Yi simply patted his backpack and said, "I don't live on campus, just some ID. Let's ride there." Xiao Hui teased, "I noticed you particularly like riding a bicycle," to which Luo Yi calmly replied, "Cars are not safe. I prefer bicycles." Xiao Hui shook his head with a helpless smile. "I've never seen a rich second generation like you. Who among the rich doesn't like to show off?" But Luo Yi responded steadily, "I'm not a rich kid." Xiao Hui laughed. "If you're not a rich kid, then I must be a slum dweller." Luo Yi's tone grew serious. "You grew up in a very good family, with abundant emotions, universal values, and a sense of security. From this point of view, you are a rich kid." Xiao Hui was about to laugh at him for acting like a life mentor, but when he thought of Luo Yi's painful family background, the words stuck in his throat, leaving only sympathy. He sighed softly and said, "It's okay. Even though your parents weren't reliable, you still grew up to be a good child. Families like that are often complicated, and the children tend to develop some mental distortion." Luo Yi smiled faintly and asked, "What do you think a mental distortion looks like?" Xiao Hui replied, "Well, extremely sensitive, jealous, vindictive, cold, lacking trust in others, resentful towards society, and extreme in behavior. That's about it." Hearing this, Luo Yi muttered, "I see," which made Xiao Hui curious. "What's wrong?" he asked, but Luo Yi countered, "Have you ever met someone like that?" Xiao Hui shrugged. "I've met people with 1 or 2 of those traits, but never all of them. If I did, it would be terrifying. I'd have run away long ago, okay?" His words made Luo Yi chuckle softly. As they entered the busy university town, new students were registering at various universities, and after completing his registration, Luo Yi quickly became well known, rejecting invitations from several clubs before sneaking away with Xiao Hui. Just as they were about to find a place to eat, Xiao Hui's phone rang, and his expression stiffened. "It's Xiao Kun," he whispered nervously before answering. "I'm outside dealing with something," he said, but Xiao Kun insisted on meeting for lunch at a restaurant, and Xiao Hui couldn't refuse. After hanging up, he muttered to Luo Yi, "I thought he had given up." Luo Yi raised his brows calmly. "Perfect timing. Let's go have a meal with him." Xiao Hui leaned closer and whispered, "That's right, an expensive meal. Oh, by the way, I used your living expenses to buy a set of CPB limited edition eyeshadow palettes." Luo Yi only smiled and reassured him, "You don't have to report that to me. I told you, you can use your living expenses however you like." Xiao Hui scratched his head, embarrassed. "I also bought you a really good shampoo, and I'll give you a hair care treatment later." Luo Yi's gaze softened as he replied, "Okay, brother Xiao Hui, we are family. You don't have to care too much about these things, otherwise it will just feel strange." When Xiao Hui closed his ears with his hands and said playfully, "Not listening, I still care about it, otherwise I can't control myself." Then without hesitation he hopped onto the back seat of Luo Yi's bicycle and grinned. "Let's go. The dining place is not close to here, young man. It's time to test your physical strength." Luo Yi glanced back with confidence and replied, "Don't worry, I'm in good physical condition." As he pedaled, Xiao Hui's eyes wandered, catching sight of Luo Yi's long legs rising and falling, the faint outline of thigh muscles showing through his jeans. It was the body of a young man not yet fully grown, but enough to stir the imagination. Alarmed at his own thoughts, Xiao Hui lightly slapped himself and muttered inwardly that it was far too dangerous. The restaurant they arrived at was an upscale establishment, and the two were led into a private room where Xiao Kun sat alone, scrolling through his phone. He looked up casually, greeting Xiao Hui with, "Here he comes," but when his gaze landed on Luo Yi, he froze for a second before asking, "Who is he?" Xiao Hui instantly answered, "He's my nephew, 15 years old," deliberately stressing the age. Xiao Kun nodded with an "oh" and gestured for them to sit. His sharp eyes returned to Luo Yi as he asked, "Xiao Hui, why did you bring your nephew?" "I wanted to talk business with you today." Xiao Hui explained quickly, "He started school today. I just took him to register and was about to eat when your call came. Don't worry, he's very quiet." Xiao Kun dismissed the concern, ordered dishes, and then leaned forward. "What have you thought about what we discussed last time?" Xiao Hui forced himself to appear clueless and replied, "Mr. Xiao, I talked it over with my mom. She said no no and advised me to focus on my job. Also, like I told you, I'm not very brave. His innocent look was almost childlike, but Xiao Kun suddenly asked, "How did you get the wound on your neck?" Xiao Hui froze, and Luo Yi, who had been fiddling with his phone, raised his head. I got drunk and fought with someone," Xiao Hui said awkwardly. Xiao Kun's voice turned deep and deliberate. "As long as a man dares to fight, he isn't a coward. Xiao Hui, I told you before, I came to you because you're ambitious. Let me be frank, Juxing is going to change. I'm not asking you to sell your studio, only to be my eyes inside Juxing, to see what I can't. In return, you'll get money, and later, your own independent office in the new Juxing." Xiao Hui's gaze turned vacant. He knew many people who lacked true ability, but rose high simply by being given titles. That kind of recognition could put him on a pedestal. Though he had planned to reject Xiao Kun, temptation tugged at him now. At that moment, Luo Yi suddenly asked, puzzled, "Uncle, are you going to be the boss?" Xiao Hui laughed nervously. "Ah, no," but Luo Yi persisted. "Doesn't having your own office mean you're the boss? Otherwise, what does it mean?" His sharp gaze shifted to Xiao Kun, and Xiao Hui instantly understood. Luo Yi was probing whether Xiao Kun was just making empty promises. Xiao Kun smirked. "The structure of the new Juxing isn't set, but I guarantee you'll get a position worth your while." The haze of temptation cleared in Xiao Hui's mind. If Luo Yi hadn't been there, he might have been easily swayed. "Mr. Xiao," he said cautiously, "I'm actually not very capable. Look, I didn't even get into college. Aren't you afraid I'll ruin things?" Xiao Kun gave a crooked smile. "That's why this is also a test for my future employees, unless you don't want to be tested by me." Xiao Hui cursed silently. What a trap. Not wanting to be tested meant not wanting to be his employee at all. How unlucky was he? Just a few glances at a charity dinner, and now this man wouldn't let him go. Unsure how to respond, he turned to Luo Yi for help, but before Luo Yi could speak, Xiao Kun suddenly pointed at him and said coldly, "Turn your face away." Luo Yi blinked, startled. "What?" Xiao Kun raised his chin with a commanding edge. "I said, turn your face away." Luo Yi frowned slightly, cast a glance at Xiao Hui, then reluctantly turned his head aside. Xiao Kun reached across the table and pinched Xiao Hui's chin, his deep eyes locking onto him as his magnetic voice whispered with dangerous allure, "If you do well, I'll give you other rewards." When Xiao Hui suddenly felt his cheeks burn with embarrassment, wondering what kind of words Xiao Kun was saying right in front of Luo Yi, when a sharp bang echoed through the room. The glass had fallen to the ground, water spilling across the floor and soaking Luo Yi's pants. Luo Yi shot to his feet, silent, while Wen Xiaohui scrambled up beside him, exclaiming, "Oh, how did you do that? You should have been more careful." Luo Yi glanced down at his wet pants, his long lashes shielding whatever emotions lingered in his eyes, and Wen Xiaohui quickly offered, "Mr. Xiao, I'll take him to the bathroom to clean up." Xiao Kun merely lifted his chin in permission, but as they moved toward the door, he said smoothly, "There's a bathroom in the box on the left." With no choice, the two slipped inside. As soon as the door shut, Wen Xiaohui whispered anxiously, "Luo Yi, what should I do? He threatened me." Luo Yi's face was pale, his tone calm but cutting. "He not only threatened you, but also bribed and seduced you. Which one excites you more?" Wen Xiaohui froze. What kind of question was that? Luo Yi's lips curled into a small smile. "He's quite charming, isn't he? Your type, right?" Wen Xiaohui's heart jumped. Instinct told him that admitting the truth would anger Luo Yi, so he forced a weak smile. Well, I won't let him use me." Luo Yi turned on the faucet, water splashing into the sink, and said coldly, "Since he's gone this far, you can't just refuse. Play along with it." Wen Xiaohui's eyes widened. "Huh? Why are you changing your mind all of a sudden?" Luo Yi splashed water over his own face, lifted his head, and in the mirror, his dark eyes locked with Xiaohui's. "It's called adjusting your strategy. Brother Xiaohui, will you sleep with him?" The bluntness of the question left Wen Xiaohui mortified. Irritation surged through him. This boy was his only junior, and yet here he was, asking something so outrageous. Frowning, he snapped, "Luo Yi, even if you act like a little adult all day, you're still a child. There are things you shouldn't say, so don't say them." But Luo Yi turned, unflinching. "I've already said it, and I can't take it back. So why don't you answer me? Will you?" Xiao Hui's irritation flared hotter. "Why are you even asking me this?" "Because I don't like him," Luo Yi replied flatly. "Like you, I think he's dangerous." Deflated, Xiao Hui sighed and muttered unhappily, "No." With water dripping down his face, Luo Yi nodded slightly, then reached out and took Xiao Hui's hand. "Good. When we go out, tell him you're willing to help, but refuse any money. Every time you talk or meet, tell me, and I'll teach you how to respond. If you can get through this smoothly, it'll benefit you a lot when Juxing is reorganized. If not, you won't last there." Xiao Hui exhaled deeply. "Okay." Luo Yi dabbed at his pants with a towel, and together they stepped back into the room. The dishes had already been served, and Xiao Kun eyed them both with a knowing smile. Come and eat. Wen Xiaohui wasted no time picking up his chopsticks, while Xiao Kun leaned back studying the pair at leisure. Luo Yi ate quietly at first, but then, lifting his head, his sharp gaze locked with Xiao Kun's. For a brief moment, sparks of danger flickered between them like flint striking steel. Xiao Kun faltered, caught off guard by the wolfish intensity in the eyes of a mere 15-year-old. But when Luo Yi calmly lowered his head again, Xiao Kun almost wondered if he'd imagined it. Recovering, he narrowed his eyes and sank into deep thought. While carefully washing his nails with lemonade, Wen Xiaohui smiled politely and said, "Mr. Xiao, since you trust me so much, I'd feel embarrassed to refuse, but I absolutely cannot accept money. It's my honor to help you. If I accept money, the nature of our relationship will change." Xiao Kun chuckled, leaning back with amusement. "How come you went to the toilet and came back smarter? Looks like your IQ has improved." Wen Xiaohui's blood boiled, but he forced a fake smile and muttered, "Maybe I'm just full." Xiao Kun waved a hand casually. "Fine, I'll save this money for your bonus. Enough of this tea. Tonight, I'll take you out for a drink." Wen Xiaohui's face stiffened as he declined quickly. "Excuse me, Master Xiao, I have to head home after dinner. It's a bit far." Xiao Kun's lips curved into a smile, sharp and knowing. "If it's far, then don't go back. Stay at my place." Wen Xiaohui nearly choked on his water, and in that split second, Xiao Kun noticed the faint tightening of Luo Yi's jaw and gave him a meaningful, mocking smile. Wen Xiaohui forced a teasing laugh. "I wouldn't dare intrude on your mansion. Besides, my mother is waiting at home. Another time, perhaps." But Xiao Kun abruptly cut in. "He's not your nephew, is he? None of your relatives have nephews." Wen Xiaohui's eyes hardened. "Are you investigating me?" Xiao Kun smirked. "Would I casually hire anyone without looking into them?" Under the table, Luo Yi's fists clenched tight. Wen Xiaohui stood abruptly, his voice sharp. "He's a distant relative of mine. Mr. Xiao, we'll be leaving now. Do you need a driver?" Xiao Kun asked smoothly. "No, thank you," Wen Xiaohui replied coldly, but he couldn't stop himself and raised his voice. "Mr. Xiao, we've barely met, and yet you investigate me so casually. It makes me very uneasy." Xiao Kun only smiled, calm as ever. "Don't be afraid. I'm not a gangster. I won't harm you." Gritting his teeth, Wen Xiaohui dared not lash out and dragged Luo Yi toward the door. Behind them, Xiao Kun called after with a wicked chuckle. "Honestly, you two look more like a couple." Wen Xiaohui wanted nothing more than to slap him with the sole of his shoe, while Luo Yi glanced back with unreadable eyes before walking out. Back at Luo Yi's home, Wen Xiaohui collapsed onto the sofa with a groan. "That meal made me sick to death. I really don't want to get involved with Xiao Kun. I have such a bad feeling about this." Luo Yi replied calmly, "Just go with the flow. It's only a job. Don't be too nervous." Wen Xiaohui exhaled, then remembered. "By the way, Sister Sherry called earlier. She asked me to have tea with her tomorrow. She sounded in good spirits." Luo Yi nodded. "That's good news." Wen Xiaohui's expression softened. "She's very strong. I hope she gets through this." Luo Yi agreed. "She should be able to. I'm going to take a shower." While Luo Yi was showering, Wen Xiaohui pulled out his phone and began editing a Weibo post. He had taken plenty of photos during his visit to X University earlier, and now seemed like the perfect chance to share them. After thinking for a moment, he decided to upload a picture of Luo Yi's student ID as proof of his academically gifted nephew. Walking to Luo Yi's backpack, he called out, "Luo Yi, where's your student ID?" "In the outermost pocket," Luo Yi answered from the bathroom. Wen Xiaohui found the backpack and pulled out the ID card, but along with it came another card. At first, he intended to put it back, but then a thought struck him. Why would Luo Yi already have a separate ID card at such a young age? Curiosity pricked him and he flipped it over. His breath caught in his throat. It was Xue Li's ex-husband's ID card. Wen Xiaohui stared at it again and again, his heart pounding. The name, the age, the place of origin, everything matched perfectly. How on earth had Luo Yi gotten this? When? And more importantly, why? What was he planning to do with it? Just then, the sound of running water in the bathroom ceased. Panic surged through Wen Xiaohui, and he shoved the ID card back into the bag as if his fingers had been burned. Doubts swirled violently in his mind, but he stood frozen, torn between asking Luo Yi directly or keeping his silence. When Luo Yi came out of the shower, he noticed Wen Xiaohui holding his student ID with a distracted expression and asked, "Brother Xiaohui, did you take a picture?" Wen Xiaohui quickly placed the card on the table, raised his phone, and replied, "Yeah, taking it now." Luo Yi's eyes drifted to his backpack, and with a knowing look, he pulled something out and handed it over, saying, "Give this to Sherry tomorrow." Wen Xiaohui glanced down and froze. It was an ID card. "Huh? How do you have his ID card?" he asked in shock. Luo Yi answered calmly, "Didn't we call an ambulance that day? When I went to pay, the doctor asked for his age and name, so I checked the ID, but later I stuffed it into my pocket along with the receipts and forgot about it." Wen Xiaohui exhaled in relief, then shook the card away in disgust. "Sister Sherry won't want this thing. Just throw it away." Luo Yi shrugged. "Well, it's up to you." Pushing the thought aside, Wen Xiaohui opened Weibo, posted an update, and smiled to himself. "Oh, my fans are about to break 70,000. Luo Yi leaned in close, his damp hair dripping as the fresh scent of shampoo filled the air. hair. Let me see, he said, peering over Wen Xiaohui's shoulder. On the screen, Wen Xiaohui's profile picture showed him with his head tilted on his knees, dreamy eyes gazing at the camera, lips slightly parted, his skin pale and luminous. That profile picture is really nice, Luo Yi murmured. For a moment, Wen Xiaohui was distracted by the scent and the closeness, until water droplets from Luo Yi's hair splashed onto the phone screen, pulling him back. He frowned suddenly. Wait, are you using the shampoo I bought? Luo Yi smiled faintly. Really? I just saw it on the shelf and used it. Wen Xiaohui groaned anxiously. Oh, I said I would take care of that for you. Why did you use it first? Luo Yi blinked innocently. How about we do it now? Wen Xiaohui leaned forward, sniffed exaggeratedly, then pulled back with a sigh. The steps are all messed up. Forget it. We'll do it another day. Still, it smells really good. Luo Yi pressed the back of Wen Xiaohui's head, rubbed his hair playfully with his own, and chuckled. Then I'll give you some, closing the distance so suddenly that their breaths mingled, making Wen Xiaohui clutch his phone nervously as he swallowed hard. Luo Yi's gaze locked onto his voice low as he asked, Brother Xiaohui, how did you take that photo? Do you really have that expression? Wen Xiaohui felt his heartbeat rattling his chest and instinctively leaned back, stammering, What? Expression? Luo Yi smiled faintly, pointing at his profile picture. This one, it looks very sexy. Wen Xiaohui let out an awkward laugh. Ha 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 ha. That one. I took more than 60 photos before I finally picked one that looked good, and then I spent an hour retouching it. That's just basic professional ethics for an internet celebrity. Luo Yi rubbed his hair and said casually, You look good the way you are, before standing to blow dry his own hair, leaving Wen Xiaohui slumped on the floor, face burning, body weak, unable to recover for a long while, until he suddenly grabbed his phone and fired 3 desperate messages to a gay group. Introduce me a man. His urgency startled the chat, and someone replied quickly, Adi, I have a good one in mind. I'll introduce him to you when I get home in a few days. That someone was Luo Rue, Wen Xiaohui's best friend, who came from a well-off family and had gone to France to study pastry after graduation. Hearing he was returning, Wen Xiaohui lit up with joy, though still sighing with longing. I want a boyfriend, 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 he whined. Luo Rue reassured him. Okay, I told you I'd introduce him to you. Wait for me to get back. When Luo Yi came out of the bathroom, he saw Wen Xiaohui grinning from ear to ear and asked, What's wrong? Wen Xiaohui beamed. My childhood friend is coming back from abroad. I'll introduce you to him when he's here. His desserts are amazing. Excited, he suddenly jumped up. I'm going to take a shower. Luo Yi silently watched his retreating figure until he disappeared into the bathroom, then quietly picked up his phone and found Xiao Kun's number. Later, after work, Wen Xiaohui went to meet Sherry at a cafe and asked cautiously, Sister Sherry, how have you been lately? Tears shimmered in her eyes as she answered, I'm free now. He's dead. The shock nearly stole Wen Xiaohui's breath. Trembling, he asked, Could it be last time? Sherry shook her head. No, it has nothing to do with you. Last week the police told me he had huge debts with loan sharks. He was found dead, forced to jump off a building by debt collectors. Wen Xiaohui, still shaken, slid her husband's ID card across the table, explaining, By the way, when we sent him to the ambulance last time, Luo Yi took his ID to inform the doctors and then forgot to return it. Sherry's voice grew sharp. Why give it to me? Just throw it away. Startled, Wen Xiaohui quickly tossed it into the trash. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you, he said, taking her hand gently. It's okay. I scared you. Sister Sherry, it's all over now. Don't dwell on it anymore. Her eyes softened. Thank you for saving me back then. As long as you're not angry with me, I'm happy. Then she asked suddenly, Oh, right. When did you get a nephew? Aren't you an only child? Wen Xiaohui forced a smile. He's a distant relative's child. We just got in touch recently. Sherry pressed further. So, you hadn't met before? What's wrong? Wen Xiaohui asked, frowning. Are you still worried about what he said last time? He's actually a really good kid. But Wei Li's brows furrowed deeply as she murmured, He may not be as innocent as you think. Wen Xiaohui froze, stunned, unable to believe her words. On the way home, Wen Xiaohui's mind was a mess, tangled with thoughts he couldn't sort out. Sherry's strange reaction kept replaying in his head, especially why she had suddenly brought up Luo Yi when the two of them had barely exchanged a handful of words. And the more he thought about it, the more confused he became until it felt like his head might explode. Yet he shook it off, telling himself he was overthinking. Sherry's problem was over, which was something to be happy about, and he should be worrying about his own troubles, like Xiao Kun. Just then his phone rang, Raven's name flashing on the screen. Hello, Raven, Wen Xiaohui answered. Xiaohui, where are you? Raven asked, and Wen Xiaohui replied, Just heading home. Raven's voice turned casual, almost teasing. It's my birthday today. Caught off guard, Wen Xiaohui stammered an apology. Raven, I'm sorry. I've been so busy lately, so... But Raven laughed softly and said, It's okay. I didn't tell the studio. I didn't want too many people knowing. too noisy, too troublesome. I just want to spend time with the people I'm closest to. I'm at the cash box, come hang out. Wen Xiaohui forced a smile into his voice. Oh sure, but I don't have anything prepared. While inside he cursed Raven. Why announce it now, leaving him scrambling for a gift? Still, it was Raven's birthday, and refusing would mean cutting off his chances in the industry, so he had no choice but to agree. No need, Raven reassured him. Just come. Soon after, Wen Xiaohui reached the entrance of the KTV bar. As he lingered outside, Luo Yi texted asking how the meeting with Jue Li went, and Wen realized with a pang that he hadn't even told Luo Yi about such a big matter. Quickly he replied, I'm attending my boss's birthday party. I'll tell you when I get back. I have some exciting news. But almost immediately, Luo Yi called, and Wen Xiaohui assumed he wanted details about Sherry, only to hear him ask sharply, Are you going to a bar? No, KTV, Wen Xiaohui corrected. Drink less and don't go home too late. It's bad for your health, Luo Yi warned, making Wen Xiaohui feel as though he were being monitored. Thinking back, he realized Luo Yi always asked where he was before bed, his reliance pressing down on him in a way that was both burdensome and strangely moving. Where exactly are you? If you get drunk, I'll come pick you up, Luo Yi pressed. No need. If I really get drunk, my colleagues will take me back, Wen Xiaohui insisted. Tell me anyway, just in case, Luo Yi urged. Finally, Wen Xiaohui relented. It's a karaoke bar on XX Road. I'm heading in now. Let's talk tomorrow. The waiter led him into a private room, and the moment the door swung open, Wen Xiaohui froze. Mr. Luo was sitting right beside Raven. Honey, come here, Raven called out brightly, beaming at him, and Wen Xiaohui cursed silently. Trap. Every face in the room turned toward him, some familiar, others not, but all watching. He forced himself to move forward, greeting politely. Hello, Mr. Luo. Happy birthday, Raven, as he handed over the carefully prepared gift bag. Raven accepted the eye cream, costing him an entire month's salary, without even glancing at it, casually setting it aside with a smile. Thank you, dear. Please. With no escape, Wen Xiaohui sat, and Mr. Luo poured him a beer, his tone leisurely, but tinged with meaning. Long time no see, Adi. Your work is busier than mine these days. It's so hard to get a glimpse of you. Forcing a smile, Wen Xiaohui lifted the glass. You're busy making big money. I'm busy with the grind of grassroots work. We're both busy after all. Here's to you. He downed it in one gulp, his tolerance low, but drinking quickly to muster the courage he desperately needed to face Mr. Luo. Mr. Luo clapped his hands with a laugh, declaring, Oh, that's refreshing. I'll drink too, before downing his own glass, while Raven leaned in from the side, cautioning, Don't drink so quickly. Let's sing instead. Mr. Luo smiled, eyes glinting, and turned to Wen Xiaohui. Adi, what songs do you like? Let's sing together. Before Wen could respond, Raven interjected brightly. Adi sings beautifully, Mr. Luo. You should choose a song and let him perform. Forcing a polite tone, Wen Xiaohui muttered, I'm fine with anything, then seized the microphone just to create distance between himself and Mr. Luo. As his voice filled the room, smooth and naturally tinged with a captivating charm, Mr. Luo narrowed his eyes, watching intently, leaning over to whisper comments to Raven as the two laughed quietly, their attention fixed on him. Every glance, every chuckle made Wen Xiaohui's skin crawl. He was already calculating his escape. He'd stay an hour, no more, then leave. Raven's opinion be damned. After all, he still had young Master Xiao waiting on his revelations. Eventually slipping away to the bathroom, he slammed the door shut behind him, seething. I can't take this anymore. Raven, how dare you try to pimp me out? If you weren't still my boss, I'd knock you flat. That fat fool even tried to grab my hand just now. He clenched his fists, then forced himself to splash cold water on his face, staring into the mirror. Feeling the alcohol heat his body, his head buzzing, he pulled out his phone and dialed Luo Yi. Are you drunk? Came Luo Yi's steady voice. Wen Xiaohui exhaled, admitting, Yeah, just a bit. Could you come pick me up? All right, wait for me, Luo Yi replied without hesitation. Hanging up, Wen Xiaohui doused his face again, but the more he tried to cool himself, the hotter and more dizzy he felt. A sudden knock rattled the bathroom door, a voice calling, Adi, are you okay? No, Wen Xiaohui muttered, shoving back his damp bangs as he reluctantly opened the door. The flashing lights of the KTV blurred his vision, making his balance falter, and in an instant Mr. Luo swooped in, grabbing him by the arm with feigned concern. Dizzy after just a few drinks? No, you can't. The night's just getting started and everyone's having fun. Wen Xiaohui tried to wrench free, but Mr. Luo's grip was iron, dragging him back toward the sofa. I can't drink anymore. Really, I can't, Wen protested, but they still forced half a glass into his hand, shoving it down until his stomach churned violently. Nausea twisted through him as he fought to keep it down, his thoughts clinging desperately to Luo Yi. Has he arrived yet? I just want to go home. I just want to be in our bedroom, running through my nightly routine while he sits nearby reading a book. That's all I want. Nothing else. Adi, are you really drunk? Let Mr. Luo take you home, Raven suggested lightly. But Wen Xiaohui's clouded mind caught a sharp edge of danger, and he blurted, No need. Luo Yi's coming to pick me up. Mr. Luo's eyes narrowed. Who is Luo Yi? He's not your boyfriend, is he? Yes, Wen Xiaohui said firmly despite the haze. My boyfriend. I'm waiting for him. Mr. Luo sneered, tightening his grip around Wen Xiaohui's thin waist as he dragged him toward the exit. Funny, Raven told me you didn't have a boyfriend. No matter. Just tell him I'll take you home. No, you don't have to, Wen Xiaohui muttered, trying to resist. But Mr. Luo, short yet thick-set and powerful, pulled him into the parking lot with brute force. At that moment, Wen Xiaohui's phone began to ring. He knew in his gut it was Luo Yi, but before he could reach for it, Mr. Luo leaned in, trying to press a sloppy kiss on him. Adi, I liked you from the first moment I saw you, he slurred, voice heavy with drink. I know how hard you work. It makes me ache for you. Wen Xiaohui shoved his face away in disgust, snapping, Are you out of your mind? I want to answer my phone. Mr. Luo shoved him back against a car, voice dropping low with menace. Juxing is about to reorganize. Do you want to stay an intern forever? Follow me, and I'll give you better resources than Raven ever could. Wen Xiaohui clawed at his own hair, his patience breaking. Damn it, if you dare get any closer, I'll make you regret it. Suddenly, a clear, calm voice cut through the night. Let him go. Mr. Luo spun around and saw a tall figure standing in the shadows. The boy's face was still hidden, but the voice was young, steady, unyielding. Wen Xiaohui's heart surged. Luo Yi, he cried out. Mr. Luo burst into mocking laughter. This is your boyfriend? He looks like a schoolboy. Adi, are you playing house? You should take a page from Raven and learn how to be an adult. But then Luo Yi stepped into the light, his face carved from ice, eyes dark and fathomless, a cold aura radiating from him like a blade drawn. His voice was soft, almost gentle, yet edged with lethal steel. I said, let him go. Being threatened by someone who looked barely older than a teenager stung Mr. Luo's pride, and fueled by alcohol, he barked angrily. I'm just taking Adi home. Don't you have any manners? I don't understand, Luo Yi replied flatly, and in the next instant he lunged forward, his fist slamming into Mr. Luo's face with bone-cracking force. Caught off guard, Mr. Luo staggered, and then Luo Yi's long leg drove mercilessly into his bloated gut. Once, twice, again. Wen Xiaohui stood frozen, watching the brutal scene unravel in slow motion, Mr. Luo's face warping under each blow, his bulk crumpling to the ground, his guttural roars fading into pitiful grunts as Luo Yi's strikes landed again and again until the man could no longer fight back, only writhe helplessly on the cold pavement under the storm of Luo Yi's fury. Wen Xiaohui stared at Luo Yi's profile in shock. His face was utterly blank, carrying none of the cruelty of someone venting anger, none of the thrill of someone fighting, just a calm, detached stillness, as if he were quietly reading, writing, or eating, not savagely beating a man. The sudden intrusion of a KTV security guard broke the silence. Hey, what's going on here? But Luo Yi turned a cold gaze on him, strands of damp hair slipping across his forehead, half-veiling eyes that gleamed with something feral. Why meddle in other people's business? He asked softly. The guard froze, throat bobbing as he swallowed, then quickly lowered his head, glanced around nervously, and slipped away. Luo Yi's gaze dropped back to Mr. Luo, his voice so calm it sent chills crawling down Wen Xiaohui's spine. Which hand touched you? The left? Before Wen Xiaohui could stop him, Luo Yi stomped down with merciless force, the sickening crack of breaking bones ripping through the night, followed by Mr. Luo's pig-like screams that echoed in the parking lot. Wen Xiaohui's whole body trembled, his mind whirling. Was this really Luo Yi? The Luo Yi he knew was gentle, sunny, warm, not this terrifying, unrecognizable figure. And the right hand? Luo Yi murmured, cocking his head. Did that one touch you too? Panic burst free from Wen Xiaohui's throat at last. Luo Yi! His voice cracked as he staggered forward and shoved him, chest heaving, fear lacing every word. Enough! Luo Yi, it's okay. I'm fine. Luo Yi's neck stiffened, his gaze flicking between Wen Xiaohui and the broken man on the ground. Don't be afraid, he said in an eerily even tone. I won't hit the vitals. Wen Xiaohui gasped, trying to ground himself, muttering desperately. It's fine, really. He's my boss's friend, an investor, but Luo Yi only tilted his head, voice calm as ever. Are you afraid he'll make things difficult for you? He won't. Then, to Wen Xiaohui's horror, he crouched beside the groaning man and reached for his belt. What are you doing? Wen Xiaohui demanded, his pulse spiking. Luo Yi's lips curled faintly. Castrate him. Luo Yi! Wen Xiaohui screamed, terror snapping through him, but Luo Yi only chuckled softly. Relax. I'm kidding. Instead, with clinical efficiency, he stripped Mr. Luo from the waist down, pulled out his phone, and snapped several pictures. Wen Xiaohui's stomach twisted. Part of him thought it was excessive, but another part knew it was necessary. Fear kept him from intervening, and deep down he realized Luo Yi was right. Without evidence, they'd both be ruined. When Luo Yi finished, he shoved the phone in the man's face. You know what to do. Mr. Luo, pale and drenched in sweat, nodded frantically, tears welling in his eyes. Without another word, Luo Yi pocketed his phone, clasped Wen Xiaohui's trembling hand, and led him away. They walked in silence until they reached the street, and Wen Xiaohui realized his palm was slick with sweat, his grip faltering. Luo Yi turned his head, studying him quietly. "Were you scared?" he asked. Wen Xiaohui bit down on his lip, whispering, "This is the first time I've seen you like that." His mind flashed back to the night Shui Li's ex-husband had almost strangled him to death. Even then, Luo Yi hadn't seemed this terrifying, maybe because the man had already been knocked unconscious by a vase. But tonight was different. For the first time, Wen Xiaohui wondered if he had truly known Luo Yi at all. Luo Yi finally exhaled, his voice soft. "I was anxious. I trained in Muay Thai. When I lose control, I can get ruthless. But don't worry, his injuries aren't serious." Wen Xiaohui shook his head faintly, his voice low and trembling. "Actually, I'm really fine. He just needed to be taught a lesson. There was no need to hit him that hard." Because beneath the fear sat a deeper dread. Luo Yi had only just entered a prestigious university, with a future wide open before him. Wen Xiaohui's heart clenched at the thought. What if tonight's violence cost Luo Yi everything? Luo Yi's voice was low and steady as he said, "If you decide to use violence to resolve a matter, it's best to do it immediately. Otherwise, you won't extinguish the other party's desire for revenge, and it will only bring future trouble." His dark eyes settled on Wen Xiaohui, cold with certainty. "I won't give him the chance to bother you again." Wen Xiaohui sighed heavily, frustration spilling out. "Damn it, I shouldn't have come tonight. That Raven, if he hadn't been trying to pimp me out, none of this disgusting mess would have happened." Luo Yi's expression hardened. "Raven introduced you to that man?" he asked. Wen Xiaohui nodded, anger flashing in his voice. "His surname is Luo. He's discussing an investment with Raven. He must be some boss or senior executive from the company looking to cooperate with Shao Kun. We met him at the charity gala last time, and he's been obsessed with me since. Raven, that shameless bastard, tried to sell me off." Luo Yi's eyes darkened even further. "You should have told me earlier." Startled, Wen Xiaohui suddenly covered Luo Yi's ears like a child and whispered, "Wait, did you hear me swear?" Luo Yi looked at him calmly. "I didn't hear anything." Wen Xiaohui clenched his fists, ashamed. "I didn't want to tell you. It's not appropriate to mention something so filthy." But Luo Yi gently pressed his palm against Wen Xiaohui's cheek, his tone firm. "Then who would you tell? You can't tell your mother. You'd be too embarrassed to tell your friend. If you don't tell me, then you'll bear it all alone. And I don't want you carrying such disgusting things by yourself." Wen Xiaohui's lips trembled, his chest tightening as his nose stung with the urge to cry. Sometimes the grievances and indignities made him want to break down, but he always forced himself not to. It would feel like surrender. Yet Luo Yi's words touched the softest part of him, leaving him torn between sadness and warmth. For the first time, he realized that with Luo Yi, he didn't need to fight against tears to prove he was strong. Luo Yi rested his chin gently on his shoulder, his voice soft and tender. "Be good. I'm here." That was all it took. Wen Xiaohui clung to him, arms wrapped tightly around Luo Yi's neck as he sobbed and cursed through broken words. Luo Yi stroked his hair, his back, his touch soothing and protective, though his face remained cold and unreadable, hidden from Wen Xiaohui's tear-blurred gaze. "People who do too many bad things will meet their own destruction," he murmured. "Don't worry anymore. Raven won't be Juxing's boss much longer." Later, back at home, Wen Xiaohui barely managed to wash his face before collapsing onto the bed, still drunk, falling asleep almost instantly. Luo Yi, however, went into the study, his expression unreadable as he opened a calling app and dialed. "Hello, who is this?" came a wary voice. "Mr. Shao." "Hello," Luo Yi said calmly. There was a pause, silence heavy across the line, until Shao Kun's clipped voice replied, "State your purpose in one sentence." Luo Yi leaned back in his chair, his tone quiet but firm. "I have leverage over Luo Zhigao. I want to work with you." There was another beat of silence before Shao Kun asked, "What leverage, and what exactly do you mean by work together?" Luo Yi explained to Shao Kun over the phone, "He absolutely doesn't want anyone to see this photo. Tomorrow, I'll deliver it to your company. Masked, of course. I have the original. You can review it and then make your decision. I'll call you again the day after tomorrow at this time." And Shao Kun responded coldly, warning that no one could play tricks on him and escape unpunished. To which Luo Yi repeated calmly, "Mr. Shao, a princeling like you, desperate to escape the shadow of your father and eldest sister, eager to prove yourself through success, will prefer to work with smart people," before ending the call. After handling everything, Luo Yi sank onto the bed, the mattress dipping under his weight, and Wen Xiaohui mumbled in a daze, "Why aren't you sleeping yet?" Luo Yi reached out, gently tracing the line of Wen Xiaohui's jaw as he replied softly, "I'll go to sleep right away." And Wen Xiaohui half closed his eyes, asking, "What's wrong?" To which Luo Yi said, "Nothing. Just go to sleep." And Wen Xiaohui yawned, pursed his lips, and curled into the quilt like a little squirrel seeking warmth, prompting Luo Yi to mutter, "Silly." Autumn had arrived in the blink of an eye, and Luo Yi was already a college student. His 16th birthday was at the end of the month, and Wen Xiaohui was particularly worried about the gift. Luo Yi seemed to have everything he needed, and although he had a wide range of interests, none of them were familiar to Xiaohui. Since this was the first birthday he would spend with Luo Yi, he felt pressured to prepare something special and thoughtful. But what could it be? He was standing in a sporting goods store, staring at a pair of running shoes, when his phone rang. It was Xiao Kun. Every time Wen Xiaohui answered Xiao Kun's calls, he had to take a few deep breaths before speaking. Mr. Xiao. Xiao asked, "How is the studio lately?" Wen Xiaohui replied, "Raven hasn't been here much recently, but Liu Xing comes here often." Xiao, while looking at a picture of Mr. Luo, pressed further. "Don't you know why?" Xiaohui responded, "I have no idea." Xiao then asked, "Does Raven have a good relationship with Luo Zhigao of XX Investment? Have you had contact with Luo Zhigao?" Hearing that name, Wen Xiaohui panicked and admitted, "Yes, I've met him twice," while wondering why Xiao suddenly brought up President Luo. Xiao explained, "Raven is trying hard to win over Luo Zhigao, but their company isn't run by just one person named Luo. Frankly, if Luo sleeps with him, it might be for nothing. Instead of staying loyal to Raven, who might abandon you at any moment, why not work for me? I won't treat you unfairly." Wen Xiaohui nervously replied, "Got it." Then Xiao suddenly asked, "By the way, when did you know that President Luo is gay? You didn't seem surprised by what I just said." At that, cold sweat broke out on Wen Xiaohui's forehead. Xiao chuckled and added, "President Luo and Raven wouldn't have told an intern like you. Let me guess, President Luo has a thing for you? You've always been cautious around me. Has President Luo promised you something?" Xiaohui denied it frantically. "No, absolutely not. I don't know him at all." Xiao laughed again, saying, "Kid, just teasing you. Okay, remember to send me the list tonight." After hanging up, Wen Xiaohui furiously gave his phone the middle finger, his hands trembling. He had been terrified that Xiao had somehow discovered the secret about Mr. Luo being beaten by Luo Yi, an incident that remained like a ticking time bomb in his mind, ready to explode at the slightest hint of exposure. Just then, Luo Yi's call came in. "Brother Xiaohui, are you home?" Luo Yi asked. Wen Xiaohui answered, "No, I'm out shopping." Luo Yi said, "Do you want to come over today? I'm free. I'm at home." Xiaohui brightened and replied, "Sure, I haven't seen you in over a week. I'll pack some snacks and we can go to the movies together." Soon after, Wen Xiaohui bought a bunch of food and happily headed to Luo Yi's place. When he arrived, Luo Yi had just finished showering, wearing a bathrobe with a towel draped over his head, the robe's deep V-neck exposing part of his chest. Wen Xiaohui set the bags on the coffee table and asked, "Why are you showering so late?" Luo Yi answered casually, "Just got back from playing basketball at school." Xiaohui straightened up and asked, "Have you grown taller?" Luo Yi thought for a moment and said, "Maybe. I haven't measured myself recently." Xiaohui pressed, "How tall were you last time you checked?" Luo Yi replied, "About a year ago, 1.76 meters. Wen Xiaohui said, "I'm 1.77 meters. You were a bit taller than me when I met you. You've definitely grown." Luo Yi smiled and teased, "Then you're probably over 1.8 meters now." While unpacking the food, Wen Xiaohui casually remarked, "My sister is tall, about 1.7 meters. As long as your dad isn't short, you'll definitely be over 1.85 meters. How tall is your dad?" After waiting for a long moment without a response, Wen Xiaohui turned his head curiously and saw Luo Yi standing behind him, adjusting the TV, his jaw tense, signaling that he had heard the question but didn't want to answer. Realizing he might have said something he shouldn't have, Wen Xiaohui let out a soft sigh, feeling the atmosphere grow a little awkward. After more than half a year of knowing each other, Luo Yi's father had always been a forbidden topic between them. Luo Yi turned on the movie and squatted to help Wen Xiaohui unpack the bag, noticing him hanging his head in silence and whispering, "I don't like talking about that person. Let's not talk about him in the future, okay?" Wen Xiaohui lifted his head, embarrassed, muttering, "I didn't mean it," and Luo Yi smiled, reassuring him, "It's okay." Wen Xiaohui couldn't help touching his wet hair and asked quietly, "Am I really your only family?" Luo Yi rubbed his hand along his head and said softly, "Yes, there's no one else." And when Xiaohui forced a small smile, Luo Yi paused, then added, "If Lawyer Cao wants to talk to you about that person, don't pay attention to him, okay?" Puzzled, Wen Xiaohui asked why Cao would even mention his father, and Luo Yi remained silent for a moment before explaining. Lawyer Cao was with Mom, which widened Wen Xiaohui's eyes. Luo Yi nodded, elaborating that there must be some unresolved issue between Cao and his mother, and that Cao was unhappy with the inheritance distribution, potentially planning something further, so Wen Xiaohui shouldn't trust anything he said. Luo Yi gently touched Wen Xiaohui's soft earrings, reassuring him, "Just trust me." And Wen Xiaohui nodded, saying firmly, "Don't worry. How could I trust an outsider? I definitely trust you." And Luo Yi's heart trembled slightly at the certainty in his eyes. Trying to lighten the mood, Wen Xiaohui patted him and said, "Come on, let's watch the movie and try this fried chicken. My girlfriend recommended it. She ate it for a month and gained 5 pounds. Luo Yi raised an eyebrow. "Your girlfriend?" Wen Xiaohui laughed and explained she was a colleague, a best friend, a super fun girl, and Luo Yi smirked, teasing that Wen Xiaohui seemed to have changed personality. Wen Xiaohui laughed, clarifying that if he truly liked her, he would pursue her, but it was impossible in this life, and described her as small, pretty, a year younger than him. Luo Yi smiled and teased, "Brother Xiaohui, I'm only 15. Why do you always encourage me to fall in love early?" Wen Xiaohui replied, "You'll be 16 soon. It's a waste of youth if you don't." Luo Yi countered, worried he'd lose time with Wen Xiaohui if he fell in love, but then raised a Coke can, clinking it with him, saying sincerely, "I would rather accompany you." And Wen Xiaohui felt a flutter of worry and warmth at the thought of Luo Yi ever sharing his attention with someone else. They smiled at each other, hearts quietly racing. When Wen Xiaohui learned that Luo Rui was returning to China, they made plans for Saturday dinner, and he became so excited that he immediately washed his face and put on makeup after returning to Luo Yi's place from the studio. Luo Yi noticed and asked, "What's wrong? Do you have an event tonight?" Wen Xiaohui explained, "My stepmother is back, my childhood friend, as I told you last time." And Luo Yi questioned why he was dressing up so carefully. Wen Xiaohui glanced at him and replied, "I need to take a photo. She's pretty, and I have to look better than anyone appearing in the same shot," which made Luo Yi laugh as he watched him meticulously apply mascara. Wen Xiaohui then suddenly turned, a thoughtful look on his face, and added, "Although I like makeup, it's just a hobby. Don't try to imitate me." Luo Yi asked softly, "What's wrong? Is it bad?" Wen Xiaohui shook his head, smiling faintly. "It's not a question of good or bad. I'm gay, and you're not. Not many normal girls like men wearing makeup," he admitted. "Actually, many girls don't like effeminate men wearing makeup." Luo Yi tilted his head, curious. "Then why do you still wear it?" Wen Xiaohui's eyes sparkled as he looked at his reflection in the mirror. "As long as I'm happy, I don't care what others think. I just like the way I look beautiful." When he arrived at the cafe where they had agreed to meet, Wen Xiaohui rushed in, eyes lighting up. "Little mom," he exclaimed. Luo Rui looked up, surprised, and the two immediately embraced, letting out a series of happy screams that drew disdainful glances from nearby patrons. Wen Xiaohui pressed a quick kiss to his forehead and mimicked Feng Gong's tone. "I missed you so much." Luo Rui ruffled his hair and said, "I missed you too. This time I'm staying, opening a French dessert shop. You'll help me design it, right?" They ordered desserts and coffee, and Wen Xiaohui mentioned the group chat about finding a partner. Luo Rui teased him about a friend of a friend and asked, recalling a past tweet, why he hadn't known Wen Xiaohui had a genius relative studying at X university. Wen Xiaohui sighed and reflected that this had been one of the biggest changes in his life. "Do you remember Yaya?" he asked. Luo Rui nodded. "Your sister, right? Weren't you guys not in touch?" Wen Xiaohui's expression darkened slightly. "She passed away not long ago. I don't want to go into the details, but she left behind a 15-year-old son and a large inheritance." Words he had bottled up spilled out, and he admitted softly, "If I had known this would happen." Luo Yi's voice was gentle but firm. "Don't be sad. It wasn't something you could have foreseen." Wen Xiaohui forced a smile and suggested, "Let's talk about something lighter," and then blushed as he continued. "After spending time with Luo Yi, he's such a perfect kid. I feel like I've gained another family member. I'll introduce you two one day." Luo Yi replied warmly, "Sure, but from what you've described, this kid sounds tall and handsome. Aren't you worried you won't control yourself?" Wen Xiaohui laughed and admitted honestly, "There have been a few times it's been hard. Some of his actions really get to me. For example, he goes for a morning run every day. Most people wear workout clothes, but he wears professional track shorts. You can see all the lines of his thighs, sometimes even more. He doesn't even realize, and I feel too embarrassed to say anything. It's so awkward." Luo Yi chuckled and murmured sympathetically, "Poor you, babe." And with that, Season 1 came to a close. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching.